So now we're broadcasting to all attendees, and at 6:45 we'll start recording. Actually, recording has already started. So that's it. It looks like we need Paul and Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of confused on the website. It didn't have Dan's name on it.
Did it?
No.
Dan Warchell?
Yeah.
Well, clearly somebody went in there and messed
That's
with
weird.
it.
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder. He didn't. I just saw him.
But I just didn't see it. Because I was kind of curious if there was a change or something.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I just bumped into him over the weekend in our neighborhood because he lives right on the corner, and he didn't say anything about it. He said everything was going well and likes the mission. So
yeah, well, I guess
that's weird.
I would expect he'd tell us that he was leaving.
Yeah, well, again, I just went in and that's what I saw. That's all.
Oh yeah,
Sharing my
not there.
screen. Okay. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. I'm gonna go back to beginning. We have a big meeting tonight.
Yeah, great.
A big one. There's a lot. Our 15-minute of new and other business, new and old business is gonna be hefty.
Well, it is what it is.
Yep. Did you all get my emails today about the oil situation?
Yep.
Yes. And the new aerial does show it quite nicely.
Does it?
Yeah, I had seen that. I had no idea what it was.
Same. I think actually not many people still actually know what it is. It's kind of a mystery. Coast Guard has contacted the Historic Society, see if they can help figure out exactly what was there.
Exactly where is that? Is it down near the jetty or?
No,
It's, yeah,
it's right off of, if you go in the main parking lot and take that trail that shoots off to the right from the boardwalk, it goes
Yeah.
right to it. I sent the pictures.
yeah. If you're at like 75th Street, where all the worst erosion is, down at that end of that street, up on
Yeah.
that eroded dune, and you look to your left, you'll be able to see it. If you got down on the beach and walked north towards like North Point,
Yeah.
towards the boardwalk, you'd walk right into it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's weird. Pictures. All right, so I think we need. Oh, Donna Holiday has raised her hand. Donna, I'm gonna get you. Hold on one sec. I have to get my participants list. Now I can see you. And yes. Hi, Donna.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you, Joe. I really appreciated you sending the aerial views. I think the one organization that was omitted in this whole quick assessment of what's going on at the old Coast Guard station was our fire department. And so I sent them the information, considering how long Steve Bradbury has been here as a firefighter and deputy director, and he is responsible for the underground storage tank removal. And I was hoping he might be able to, when I sent all the information to him this afternoon, weigh in. But they, this is very serious, the fact that we've got, a full underground tank filled with flammable liquids. So as I said, I did send information to the fire department because I think they should be on site when they're removing this stuff too. So I just wanted to add that piece.
So there's an actual tank under there?
Yes, is what the report came back today, was that there was a UST and there was in fact flammable liquid in there. I assume it's oil or gas of some sort, and that they are instructed to siphon off all of the flammable liquids into other containers and remove them from the beach. But I believe that the fire department should be there while they're doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Donna. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I talked with Daryl today. He said that they had already started and that they'd removed about 8 containers of oily water already just today.
Good,
Wow.
wonderful.
And who's doing the work? Is it being done by the government, or did
Yes.
we hire a contractor? Okay.
No, it's because this is DCR property, although we've, had our debates and conversations about DCR's role in this beach area. I am very, very pleased that they have stepped up right away, and DEP and, their staff, as well as DCR, are mobilizing very quickly as a result of this.
Good.
Yeah, DCR's, I believe it's, I don't want to say it's their hazardous waste person, but it's their environmental quality person, let's say, is working with DEP on it, and they're jointly sort of putting together a plan for what comes next, which will likely involve excavation of sand. And so I have prepared an emergency certification for you all to vote on tonight to allow them to move forward with that work.
Okay, well then, let's
Oh,
get
yes.
the meeting going then.
Yeah.
Let's bring this meeting to order. It's the October 6, 2020 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded. First item is the approval of the meeting minutes from September 15th, 2020. Ron, I'll let you go first on your changes.
Yeah, I just saw that on the vote for the, I think it was Katie and Jason project, that Dan and I were voted a yes, and we were voted absent. Not voted, we were listed as absent, and I know I wasn't there.
Okay. So get that change. Any other comments or changes?
Motion to approve.
Very good. Second,
All right, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine, Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So let's, we can rehash our Plum Island updates.
Okay, so since we already had just started discussing briefly with Mayor Holliday this issue of an oil release out on Plum Island, maybe the best place to start is with that. And I'm sorry, that's the wrong.
Yeah.
That's the next agenda item. Well, Donna, would you like to start with the oil, or would you like to start with the Reservation Terrace dunes situation?
Well, I don't have much else to offer in terms of what's going on with the oil situation. I think that the email that was sent to you today, Julia, really helped clarify what's going on, what they discovered, and I'm grateful to whoever the resident is out there who saw the pipe, thought she smelled something like oil or gas, and made the appropriate calls, and things have mobilized very quickly since that point. So I'm happy to hear that. So that's where I am. The one piece that I said that I added to this was ensuring that our fire department was aware of what was going on, and they're going to go down tomorrow and be on site also watching the deployment of the 900-pound super sacks, but also for talking about the safe removal of all of this. And again, then we have to look at, why was this underground storage tank, which typically once a building is abandoned, has to be moved within, a very short period of time. And I'm unsure how, probably because of the time of, when this happened, that maybe we didn't have as strict rules regarding the removal of underground storage tanks. But, I think that it's something that, I would like to find out about what the plans are for the removal of the pipe and the underground storage tank also.
Yes.
So this is Coast
Go
Guard
ahead.
property? Is
I'm s-
Go
is
ahead.
it Coast Guard property?
Not anymore. It was at one point when they had a structure there,
Right.
but my understanding that it's now DCR property.
But the tank was theirs when the station was abandoned, correct? Or
I believe so. That's my understanding. But again, there's a lot of unknowns at this point since everything has just surfaced. But what I'm pleased about is the fact that they are moving very quickly on this.
Yeah. It would seem like they might ultimately bear the financial responsibility, but that's out of our league.
Well, this isn't our responsibility, again. We don't own the beach. We've done a lot on the beach, but this is one project that we are not touching,
Do we
other
have
than providing fire support.
Do we have any insurance that there's no other tanks there? I don't know if there's such a thing as a plan or anything.
Not that I know of, David, it's actually a little bit of a mystery as to what this all is. Can you all see the photo I just shared?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some pipes coming out. You can see like remnants of sort of rusty pipes that are strewn about, some coming out of the ground. Right here was a pipe, and in this circled area is where they found the pool of oily water, or sort of oil floating on top. And someone had been walking by and smelled it, went over and looked and called the Coast Guard, and that's how this whole thing came about. But they've been trying to figure out just what exactly this foundation used to be, whether or not it was an old fuel pier, maybe right here, that fueled boats coming into the harbor and out, and therefore maybe there are some underground storage tanks somewhere, or maybe these pipes lead further back into the island, into the dune where something else was. So they're just really trying to figure that out. And the Coast Guard contacted the Historic Society to try and get some information on what might have been there specifically in the past.
That's some serious asphalt there.
Oh, yeah.
If I can find another picture. Here's another. Can you see this one? Are you able to see this, share? Or is it the
Where's-
same
just
photo,
in the
right?
first
The same photo.
Okay, let me see if I can get you. Okay. How about this one?
Yep.
Yep.
This is a farther away photo. So you can see there's these other structures that sort of stick out, and further down into the water area is like an old sort of almost like a footing for what could have been a pier. A big concrete footing is out here further. Let's see if I have any other photos.
Well, I
Here's
was
a-
out there like a month or month and a half ago, and these things sticking up with these big pipes were not out yet.
Yeah. Here's another. Can you
That's
see this?
frightening.
Yeah.
This is the actual oil where they started to see it. So they've been pulling oily water out of here, and like I said, they've already filled 8 barrels today, and they still haven't, sort of really even begun to get involved with what's down there. So it's a sort of a mystery.
If this was a filling depot of some type, there could be a number of tanks, and they could be pretty large too, so it could get messy quick.
Right. Here's an historic photo of that general area. So if you can see, Reservation Terrace kind of comes along where the borderline for these houses are back here by the Plum Island sign. And then the jetty would be further south. This cluster of buildings potentially could be related to what we're seeing, but nobody seems to know. Does anybody know what these buildings are?
I don't know, but if it's U.S. government property, it's got to be the Coast Guard. And
Yeah.
there are obviously lots of vehicles parked there.
Yep.
There's usually really good documentation on any of these things when it's the government. I mean, plans and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they left a tank, God knows what else they left too.
Yeah.
Right.
How about the asphalt? Would that be getting removed as well?
Yeah, the asphalt will be removed, all of it. And, you know, all of this is related to, they're all petroleum products, so it's all considered contamination. So it'll all be removed, but I don't have those details yet. I spoke with Daryl Forgione from DCR today, and he put me in touch with the person at DEP and the other folks in his office who are putting together kind of a scope of work for this, for removing all of this. But because they've already started in there, just getting out the contaminated water, they requested that we issue an emergency certification. So I brought that with me, or I got that ready for tonight.
Julia,
And yep,
is it possible to include in the emergency cert that they do a deeper analysis of what is under the ground in case there's additional underground storage tanks there?
yeah, absolutely. I think that they should. And I can make sure that they do that. I'll talk with them again about it tomorrow. Let's see.
Yeah, the question I have is if they start doing some excavation to try to find where that hole leads, at some point they may wind up having to excavate a lot.
Right.
And we want to know, at least with their NOI, that what their plans are and how they're going to proceed in that investigation.
Yeah, I mean, they should maybe have an LSP on site. I'm not really sure. So,
Yeah.
always the emergency certification should be followed up, you're right, with a notice of intent, with all these additional details. Right now, I thought that what we could do is just put together this emergency certification form, right? You all can vote to issue an emergency certification. The work to be allowed, I can fill in tomorrow when I get the email with all the specifications from DCR. And then they can start work, and they would have 60 days in which to do that work. And then they would have to provide a notice of intent.
Yeah.
So would they basically be leaving the foundations too?
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another thing we want to be able to do is to keep the neighbors there apprised of what is going on, because if it does turn into a very large job, people will start to worry about what's going on, and it's not very good if they call us and say, what's going on? And we say, we don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think right now that the problem is that nobody really knows.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
really knows even what it is. But they contacted the Historic Society because if it's an archaeological site, that's an issue as well. So they're trying to get information about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can make a note to speak with them tomorrow and let them know that the commission would like all the asphalt, all the cement, and other debris removed along with the contaminated sand and water. Anything else?
That'll of course take a lot of volume out of there too.
Yeah.
I know. And right. And
Yeah, we wanna be
there's the
careful.
other question of the equipment that they're going to need to get in there with, and how they're going to get that there. Because the only way I can see for them to get it there is around the beach or over the dune at 75th Street. Is not a good area, or 77th Street. Yeah, any of those areas, we'd really need them to be very careful. So the method of getting equipment out there to excavate is going to be a question too.
What did they do
There's that-
today, Julia?
Would be saved
I don't
for
know.
the last part. I assume.
What was that, David?
I'm assuming that any concrete they took out, the first thing is to get the light oil out of there. Beyond that, is not as big a rush.
Okay.
True.
I'm sorry I don't have more information for you on any of these details. It really just came up like yesterday and today, and I wasn't able to get out there today to look at it. I had seen it last week, and so I've been out there, but not since they started today. They just started today pulling out some of this water.
So is this
Okay.
water still in the tank, or is it?
I think it's really floating on the water table right there.
Oh,
It's sort of bubbled up. It's
Yeah.
very close, to the
So
water
we really
table.
have no
So
idea where the tank would be.
no, they don't.
Wow. Boy.
where is this in relationship to that well that is for the clam purification plant? Is it anywhere near it?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's further north.
it's over on the Charos side, closer to that area, I believe. Where the
Okay.
Doc
Yeah.
Charos land is. I think it's over on that side.
Can you see this map?
Yes.
So it's, the red dot is where this contamination is right now. And Charos is closer to where this green
Right.
tree
Okay.
thing is up there. And there's down Charos.
Okay. All right, so we want to vote on an emergency cert.
And I will fill in these details and send them to you tomorrow prior to sending it out to DCR.
A motion to issue the emergency cert.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
I'll vote yes
Okay.
too.
Oh, there's Dan. Dan, your name is no longer on the city website. I'm sorry you can't participate in this.
Uh-oh.
For whatever reason, it got,
coming late to the meeting.
we were getting a little nervous.
Okay, thank you. Now it looks like we can move on from there to Reservation Terrace.
Take it away, Mayor Holliday.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to give you an update on where we are. We have about 80,000. I had anticipated when I heard from the Lieutenant Governor that they were going to do a 50-50 cost share. It turned out to be only 25K, not 50, which is, fine. I'll take whatever they're willing to give us at this point in terms of the project. We have, I think, close to 200 of the super sacks filled. They're 3 by 3 by 3, and they're sort of a nylon mesh kind of material so that they will ultimately degrade. They weigh 900 pounds when full, and we used our DPS staff to fill the bags, and they came up with a pretty clever way of doing it so that it would save money with the contractor, TC, who came out and did the dune nourishment with us on Plum Island last September. They are ready to deploy tomorrow with 2 excavators, which will lift the bags and put them in place. I'm not sure if Leela and Mark Wright are on the call tonight, but these are the owners who put up an additional, I think, 4 or 5 of the cement blocks. And that are forming, and it was pretty serious out there. People were beginning to panic again. To us in terms of the super sacks and how they will perform is that because sand is building up significantly behind the concrete blocks that the Wrights have put up, and we would like to use them to anchor the wall over there until we have a sense of how these bags are going to work. Would you allow us at least to get through the winter season before we moved on your request to remove those blocks to help anchor the wall and build. And as we saw, the sand is definitely building up behind there. And that's what this is all about, is to trying to rebuild the dune back there. So that's the ask tonight, is if you would allow us, 4 months before we move the cement blocks until we could determine how these super sacks are going to work.
Well, I'm personally not in favor of it. They're illegally put up there. And I don't know if the commission wants to have a vote on that. I'm fine with that. I have to be a no vote on that because it's allowing.
What happens if those blocks are buried in 4 months? I'm sure no one is going to want to excavate beach sand to pull blocks out that were put there illegally.
Well, I think you would be able to put something behind the blocks to shore up the sand. I think we would be able to do that and then take the blocks down and replace them with, because we'd have to, in order to replace them with the super sacks.
Could I just ask a question? You had said that the super sacks were biodegradable. Does that mean
Well,
they're going to stay in place?
We're hoping, again, I don't have, because this is all new, definitive information on how long, but, again, it's a fabric material that is very strong, obviously, to be able to hold 900 pounds of sand. But they're certainly more durable than, the fabric in core bags, for sure. But
Well, I was just zeroing in on the fact that originally I thought that DEP wanted these removed eventually.
No,
Is
no,
that
they don't
not-
want the super sacks removed. They want, again, like you, they want the cement blocks removed. They
Yeah.
actually, Secretary Thea Harris was very pleased that we were able to find something that was a temporary solution until the river is dredged and we can put those materials, back on Reservation Terrace, remove the super sacks and use them, hold them for an emergency. We have ordered 500. We're probably hoping to deploy between 3 and 350 and get as close to 77th Street as we can, depending on how long it takes, because we don't know yet in terms of working with the contractor, how fast they can, deploy and set up these bags. But again, these are not a permanent structure, but we're hoping that they will provide enough support and protection for the water sewer system and the homes, and that we can end up having sand accumulate behind these and then be replaced with the dredge from the Merrimack River, which Congressman Moulton did put into the Water 2 Act. Now, whether or not that, moves swiftly forward in terms of what's happening in Congress, who knows? But certainly this is the goal that Army Corps and all of our meetings with them have been working on, is they have found that the dredge of the river and placing the dredge material on Reservation Terrace is a beneficial use under their 204 study. So everything is working finally. It's just taking forever, to move all of these studies and projects forward. And, as you know, we ran out of time and at least found something that was permittable, and we're hoping will do what we need it to do in terms of, with all the storms coming, protect Reservation Terrace and, a little bit beyond on either side, as well as the homes and water and sewer system.
I wouldn't have a problem with them leaving them as long as it was written in that they would be removed. I mean, considering the time of year and so forth.
Thank you, David. And I'm really concerned about what we're hearing in terms of the level of storms. And if you look at the video, I'm not sure, Julia, did you send the video to the Conservation Commission from the rate?
I have it here if you'd like me to play it.
Would you like to see?
Yeah.
Members?
Okay, let me pull up this video for you all. Hold on, I'm gonna just pause what I'm sharing now so that I can open up.
And this, again, keep in mind, is just residual effect from one of the hurricanes and the two really high tides. I mean, this isn't, you know, a storm that's hitting Plum Island. So I'm concerned. I'm very concerned.
Okay.
No, I think we're all concerned.
Can you see this?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
No.
Okay. Can you see it now? Hold on.
No.
Resume share.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You
Okay.
share.
Getting there.
Now you can see this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna play the video. This is from a few weeks ago when no rain, no wind. It's the end of 75th Street, very end of 75th. That's going over towards 77th.
Yeah, so I have zero issue with extending the bags out toward 77th. I have a huge issue with the blocks.
Yeah,
Right.
that, and I apologize. There was a movie, Donna, which I think someone
I
had sent to
know.
me, and it expired when I went back to find it today.
Okay.
The link
Because
to
that
it
was really showed
gone.
the cement blocks, the waves pouring over, but then also showed the sand accumulating on the other side. But
Yeah.
So aren't these super sacks, are they taller than the blocks that get put on
Yes.
top of the blocks?
yes,
So if you remove the cement blocks, which I believe are maybe 2 feet high, and replace them with something that's 3 feet high, I think that's a good thing.
okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just asking on the behalf of the residents and the fact that they were very effective in the last two really high tide cycles out there. And there was some discussion about how they might be able to help anchor the super sacks along the rest of the wall, and us to evaluate before we remove them. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're right in this area where the Reservation Terrace text is, that second row of blocks, and
Your screen's not
during
showing.
that it's during that same storm where I just showed the video where the water was coming over here at 75th Street. It was similarly coming over here at Reservation Terrace and crashing into that double row of blocks. So it, you know, it is a substantial problem. And that again there was no rain or wind that day. That was strictly just wave action from the hurricane, which was way offshore. So we're just hoping that we don't get more of those.
Right,
Yeah.
but the reality
Yeah.
is if we leave these here and someone else wants to do it somewhere else, they can point at the fact that we allowed them to do it there. And I don't want to go down that road personally.
Yeah,
And
well, I would say I don't really like the idea of that extra row of blocks, but I would certainly be willing to go along with it for now, just for the sake of time, if anything else. And if they're going to be removed later, you know, then I don't believe we've set a precedence.
Yeah, but I think we're replacing them with something that will hopefully do a better job because it's a foot higher and maybe even weighs more.
Well, what is the purpose of saving that second row of blocks? Does any of the engineers feel that they would work more quickly or better?
We don't know.
Making a more massive stop there, but you know, I keep going back to the fact it's temporary, that's all.
Yeah.
We have Counselor Zaid on the call here. Counselor, if you'd like to, I see you raise your hand.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I didn't know when comment might be appropriate, so I appreciate that. I won't take up too much of your time, but I also wanted to join in and speak in favor of keeping the blocks, and just to maybe add a little bit more to that. You know, this is obviously a pretty tough position, I think, and a lot of effort has gone in on essentially all sides to try and avoid the exact situation that we find ourselves in. But at this crossroads, I'm really asking if you could consider giving some leave for the blocks I see it as a weighing between sort of two things, you know, and at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out what is the best public benefit here. So on the one hand, there's no question that there's an issue with how the blocks were placed and the lack of permission that was sought after at the beginning. That there's no debate that that's a question, and there certainly can and may be future impacts from that. But I weigh that against the fact that we sort of are, unfortunately, at a very dire sort of position, and those videos, you know, that, as Julia said, that was far from what I would consider a direct hit. Teddy was offshore by, you know, a few 100 miles, something like that, and the blocks did perform, I think, and performed well for what we were hoping that they would do. And so I'm really nervous about the first nor'easter, as I think everybody is. So when I weigh those two things out, and I'm not diminishing by any stretch the consideration of precedent and so forth, but I do think that can be mitigated with some kind of a timeline, as you have been discussing here briefly, for the removal of the blocks, but just, you know, either perhaps allowing them for the winter, or maybe making it coterminous with a dredge of the river, if you're willing to consider that. The other two things I wanted to say, and then I'll wrap up here, is because it's a second row of blocks on top of what has been a long-standing set of blocks there. I think that the height it's not comparing the height of one super sack to one block, it's two blocks on top of each other. So when you factor in that height, it's not like taking out something that's 2 feet tall and replacing with 3 feet tall, based on what I understand about the project from Anders and having looked at the plans. And then the second aspect, I just, you know, listening to Anders in the last call, and I listened to your conservation call from, what was that, a month ago, a few times, when Anders and GZA had drawn up the original plans. I think that the exact words, but I can always remain to be corrected, was you get more bang for your buck with the bags if the second row of blocks stays. So there was a question there about whether the proposed bag project will perform better if the second row of blocks remain. And I believe the answer was yes, just because this is one of those situations where you're looking for every last little bit of opportunity. So again, I don't think there's any diminishing the challenge that you face, and I think the chair's point is very well taken about precedent, but we just have to weigh that against, you know, unfortunately, the position we find ourselves in. And while we hope for more in the future, we're staring down the barrel of nor'easters, you know, possibly in as soon as weeks. I hate to say that, but you never know here in New England. So again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and all the effort that you guys put in. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So, does anybody know, is that second row of blocks anchored to the first row at all, or is it just sitting on top? Perhaps
I believe it's just sitting on top.
Okay. So I guess
what's going to happen is if the blocks are removed, a bag will be put in its place.
Correct.
Which means you get another foot. The original design had bags going on top of those blocks, and I'm just not good with it. Good, you know, further down they're not going to have as much height. And besides the fact that the blocks are put on somebody else's property, they're not even on the owner's property, and it's put on state property without any kind of permitting or anything. And I do know that at the Merrimack Valley, or the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, Senator Tarr is very, very much against self-help, and which can cause problems all around. So for me, this is a precedent, and it's going to be very hard for us to tell somebody else that they can't do something like that on public property. So I'm still a no on that. I know I'm being a real hard ass about this, but it's
well, I think, in my view, replacing something that's 2 feet tall with something that's 3 feet tall is is better than what's there. And, you know, because if let's say we wait till April to take these down, and now you've got bags on top of blocks, and to get the blocks out, you have to destroy any sand that may have built up over the winter, if any. And you know, the same issue will come up. Well, you know, it's doing its job. We need to leave it. And I'd rather give the sandbags a chance to do their job.
Do we want to have a vote on whether to leave the bags?
I think we should.
Yeah, I have one more question. Has the state weighed in on an extension of time at all with the blocks, or are they holding your feet to the fire, Mayor Holiday?
Ron, no. I mean, essentially, the state has supported the use of the super sacks, and they are aware that the blocks were put there, but they're, you know, at this point, you know, they are really hands off because they understand the crisis situation we're in. So it really falls on Conservation Commission to make a decision in terms of whether we remove them right now or we move them in the spring.
I would say if we leave them, that we would have to check with the state as well.
Well, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the blocks be removed.
Excuse me?
I'll make a motion that the blocks be removed and replaced with the super sacks.
Second.
Okay, Paul Healy.
Can I ask before you vote? Can I ask before you vote? Are we putting a time limit on the removal motion?
Well, I'm assuming since they're going to be out there putting the super sacks in starting tomorrow, that it would take place
Now,
now.
Well, actually, I think you better make that part.
Paul, I can't,
what?
repeat, Paul, I couldn't hear you.
I think we should make that a part of the motion, because you're just saying that they will be removed. That could be next year.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to say during the process of the super sacks, placing the super sacks, that the blocks will be removed.
Jane, did you second stand?
Second.
Okay, Paul Healy,
No,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshaw,
Yes.
David Vine,
No,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
No.
and I vote yes. So I believe it,
yeah,
the
yes,
motion passes.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. I appreciate your consideration, and, you know, I know that this has been incredibly challenging, but I will certainly keep you up to date on how the project is going forward. And we will remove the cement blocks as soon as, you know, there are different types of equipment, but we will certainly get the equipment out there and honor your vote and allowing us to put the super sacks up, and we will remove the blocks. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. One quick thing. I'm going to put this emergency certification together, and I'd like to put the start date on for us. Is it tomorrow? When would you
Yes.
like to? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Yes.
there'll be 30 days and to be followed up with the notice of intent. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so much.
And it's getting extended out to as close as 77th?
As we possibly can. It depends on, you know, we're limited in terms of funding, and depends on, you know, right now we should be okay, but it depends on how many days the contractor, you know, is required to work. And we waited until tomorrow because we have a better window in terms of the high tide cycle.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is Mitchell Gorski, the Actually, the Marlene Schrader Trail Bog Bridge.
Julia, you still got the video up
Okay.
hearing it.
I do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Video thing still, there you
Oh.
go.
There
Oh
we
my
go.
gosh, I'm really sorry. Can you see the agenda now?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty over here, but let's see, we've got, it looks like Mitchell Gorski's here. I've just unmuted you if you'd like to speak, and I'm going to pull up your latest.
You want to unmute Jerry Mullins too?
Yep, and Jerry Mullins. Anyone else I need to unmute? Raise your hand if you are part of this project.
All right, go ahead, Mitchell.
All right, thank you. So what I've done is I've contacted a few lumber providers, and I got a quote from Home Depot for 37 planks, which would be doubling my project as well as doubling the planks that are already there. That would cost $1,506. And then I also have a quote for 50 planks, what would be I remove the existing planks and double everything. And that would be $2,007.
What condition are the current planks in? They're in pretty good condition, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in pretty good condition, but I just had the other one in there in case you guys wanted everything new.
Oh, yeah. No, the ones out there are in pretty good condition. So,
What,
All
what
right,
about
continue.
the,
well, go
what
ahead.
about the logs that underlay them? Those need to be bought too, right?
Yeah, those would be it would probably cost us around $360 for those.
Okay.
Make sure that's oak, because that's long lasting.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Was there any consideration about with the chicken wire?
No, I didn't do anything with the chicken wire. I didn't look at it at all.
No. We can probably revisit it later after a few people smash their heads. So, Julie, you were telling me that we have like $65,000.
Oh,
Yes, we do. We do. We have some funds in the account that would be available if the commission wanted to vote to use some money to contribute to this project.
Well, that's one of the things our money is actually for doing stuff like this. So
Hmm.
I would hope we would consider
Yeah,
paying for. I would be more than happy to pay for the wood required.
Okay, so the total would come to what? And then you all can vote on it, and we can get an invoice from Jerry.
So that'd be like $1,866 or something.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I'm good with that.
Just out of
Yeah.
curiosity, did you ask Home Depot to donate some of this? Because they do donate to.
Yes, I
charity.
did. I
Oh.
did specifically let them know, and in the past, they've always been very, very good about it. But because of the worldwide lumber shortage due to the pandemic, their corporate vetoed it. And so,
Yeah,
but we asked.
not surprising. It's fetching a pretty penny these days.
Yeah, it's sad.
So again, Jerry, the process for this would be the way you invoiced us in the past through the Parker River Watershed Association. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So the commission could vote on the expenditure of, we could say up to $1,900 or up to $2,000 for the purpose of contributing to construction of bog bridges through the wet areas of, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the trail.
Marlene Schrader.
Marlin Schrader Trail. Yeah.
That sounded like a motion to me.
Even though I'm not, someone else has to make that motion, not me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I'll say so moved was expenditure up to 2,000.
Second,
Okay, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ann Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
yes,
Jane Sender,
Yes.
and Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, Mitchell.
Thank you.
Don't
Okay.
do it.
Yeah.
Thank
No,
you. And I'll
a
get that
question.
invoice to, oh, sorry.
Question?
Yeah, a question. Do they have to now file an RDA or a notice for this project?
No, because this was an informal discussion at the last meeting as well, because there's an existing trail that goes through this area, essentially with some planks already on it. Essentially what they're doing is just that they're just making improvements, beneficial improvements to the trail. They're not taking down any trees or other vegetation that would have any sort of impact on existing conditions. So
Okay,
it
great.
was really an informal.
Great.
Very
And it's
good.
exempt. It's exempt as an unpaved pedestrian pathway.
Okay. All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will get that invoice to you as quickly as possible.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next item's Tom Hughes, 13 Basin Street.
Okay, hold on, Tom. I'm gonna get you. All right. If anyone else is here for that, they could raise their hand.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
Rachel Harris.
Rachel Harris,
and
yeah.
Eileen Bach.
Okay.
You can mute them.
Yep.
All right, so did you get the materials I emailed you this afternoon?
I didn't get anything from you this afternoon, but I got something from you around 10 or 11 today.
No, maybe. Okay, well, can you open that?
Yep. Hold on.
I think.
Got a lot
Is that for
going
this?
on up here. No, I'm sorry, Tom. I don't have anything from you for 13
Okay, yeah, I emailed presentation materials out this afternoon. Okay, well, let me describe the situation, I guess. If there's any way you could double check the email maybe in the meantime.
Yeah, I'll pause. Yeah. You can start talking and I'll see if I
Okay.
can log in.
So, Eileen and her husband and family live at 13 Basin, and they have been coping with Eileen's husband's Parkinson's for years now. And as many of you know, Parkinson's is a degenerative disease, and it's getting harder and harder and harder for him to get for her to get him in the home. He's wheelchair bound, and the property is located within the velocity zone, and it in order to make adjustments to the house to create an entry that is wheelchair friendly and actually something that can be used, it means that we're going to have to do some type of addition that is going to be within the floodplain. It's going to have to be at grade. The first floor of the house is already beneath the VE 17 elevation. The ground elevation outside the house is about 12 and a half. I think the first floor elevation is not much higher than that. And there is an exception in the building code for making a home handicap accessible. It has to be of the minimal size possible. And we actually have evaluated two different areas. Rachel Harris has done two different options for design. One would go off the side of the house, one would go off the side facing the street. And what we wanted to do is show those concepts to the commission and discuss the issue of how we might be able to get this through conservation to try to create an entry so her husband can and so she can get her husband in and out of the house safely. Are you seeing those materials?
Yeah, but all right, you're gonna have to just wait a minute. Wait,
Okay.
you sent me several emails. Which one do you want me to use? Oh,
There's
something-
one for 13 basins. It's just one PDF, 3 sheets.
Tom, as presented, what are the issues as far as the regs?
Well, so with regard to the regs, it's the 2 feet above grade. We can't do that because 2 feet above grade would bring the floor above the grade, above the floor in the house. It's also the 2 feet above flood. We can't do that. We're in the velocity zone. So we would be building a structure within the velocity zone at grade of between 30 and 40 square feet in order to provide a doorway to go into, essentially like an airlock lobby, to be able to then have her park her husband while she opens the door to the house within somewhat climate controlled conditions, and then get into the house. And we can have Rachel describe that, I think, in a little bit more,
Okay.
describe the situation.
All right, hold on a minute,
Get
Tom.
that now? Yeah.
I have to send it to my home email so that I can open it up on this laptop, because when I log in remotely to work, doesn't work. So I got it, but no, that's 192.
Is it about maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock-ish? The
Stuff from 5
Subjects-
o'clock,
no,
2:33.
subject should be 13 basin. Hold on.
I just resent it from my email. I don't know if that's helpful for you or not. I could also resend it to a different email address if that would be more helpful.
I'm logging back into the city's server. And Tom, it would be super helpful if we got these things earlier, because I've already left, the city hall is closed at 4. So then these things come in at 5:30, then it's really.
Yeah, the 5:30 was 192, where I tried to make that a little easier rather than 4 separate files that you got earlier. But
Okay, so, let me just go back down here. Okay.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna forward this to myself. I see what you're talking about.
okay, thank you.
It'll be 1 more minute. Get it on this. All right, hold on.
And while you're doing that, so the building, as I noted, the building inspector has to make a determination that it's a sort of reasonably the smallest size necessary to accomplish the task of getting somebody in the home to qualify for the exemption. And Rachel, I believe you've
Yeah,
had.
I can just
Building inspector,
clarify
right?
that a little bit. So it's actually not specific to being handicapped accessible. It's more like if they're in general, if there is a reason that something needs to be built in the velocity zone on an existing structure, and you can prove that it's the smallest reasonable way to resolve the issue. The building inspector, if they agree, can write a letter saying that you can have this exemption to the rules. So so we don't have to meet the elevation height for the building inspector, but we still need to show it to the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Well, then, doesn't it sound like the only thing that we decide tonight is whether or not we would consider essentially a variance on our side for our regulations to match the building code one.
Yeah.
Can
Okay.
you
So,
guys
As
see this
opposed
now?
to what design you're going to use. I mean, we don't.
right. So we can show you that now. So what you're seeing now is the aerial photograph from my map, and what you see is the home, and towards Basin, that's all one big gravel area. We also, one of the things that will be part filing will be doing some type of resurfacing of at least a portion of that to make it more wheelchair friendly, because Eileen has a heck of a time trying to get a wheelchair through that gravel. So that's one thing. If we can go to the next sheet, this is sort of less important. This is just a survey of the lot. It pretty much shows you the similar situation, you know, with the elevation out front is sort of about 12.5 in that gravel area. It actually drops down at basin to about 12. If we can go to the next sheet, that's the one that gives you some better sort of on-ground photos and the two different options. So in the upper left is an entry that would come in off the side, and the upper right is one that would come in off the basin side. And when we met Julia on site, I think we agreed, at least at the time, it seemed to make sense from a floodplain perspective, if it's on the opposite side of the house from the source of the flooding, that it may actually have less of an impact in a sense than something that juts out across the direction of flow of the water, which the one on the side would do.
Yeah, so I was out there with Tom and with the homeowner, and it is, you know, it's all gravel out there right now, as you can see from these photos, and it's sort of heavy gravel. It would be nearly impossible for a wheelchair wheels to get through this gravel. And so putting an accessible entry to the side of the house was one option, and to the front against, you know, closer to the road was the other option, and getting it up a little bit in elevation and on the back side of the house, or which is really the front side of the house, as farther, just a bit farther away from the water and farther away from potential floodwaters that would be coming through here, was, I thought, the better option.
I would agree with that.
Is there anything you can do by turning a window into a door or anything along those lines? I'm just thinking here.
We have two challenges here. It's first, when you're coming around towards the basin side of the house, it's extremely windy, and so creating a windbreak was one thing that we were trying to accomplish. And so then the other element that we were trying to accomplish is the door opens directly into the house, and when you're in the process of getting someone in a wheelchair all the way into the house, not having an airlock, it can take 5 to 10 minutes with the door being open to get him into the house. And so providing the airlock was the other element that we were trying to achieve.
So the entrance that is pointing, I guess, towards Basin Street, the one that is right off the driveway, what are the dimensions of that? I can't quite tell from the plan.
It's 7 feet by 10 feet.
Okay.
So if, Julia, maybe you could zoom in on that upper right.
This one, okay, hold on a sec.
Okay, so this says 9 by 6.5, 6 feet 5 inches. Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So are you adding, is that a closet getting added?
We had to remove the closet in order to put the door on this side. So we did add a closet because we had to remove the closet.
So you're coming in where a closet existed, which you can see in red.
Yes.
So we're not trying to gain closet space. We're just trying to make it work. And
right.
And this area, this new entry is not heated. It's not, with these sort of breakaway walls, I'm not sure. It is within the flood zone.
And we were planning on having it as a heated part of the house, but you know.
Yeah.
I guess my other question would be, why not shift the door to the right more and just not have a second window? Or I should say, I don't know, a fourth window.
To get rid of the closet part of it and
No,
leave.
no, to the right, so you have a straight shot in instead of having to have to ink over your own, the closet won't get in the way at all. Seems like it's in the way of the door now. You can't come straight in.
I mean, you could do that. It's more important. There's several issues. So when you're in a wheelchair, it's actually more important to have a minimum of 4 feet between the swings of 2 doors, which you can see this dimension on the plan, 4 feet. And so I have the 5-foot turnaround radius. And when you have doors in sequence, you need to have by ADA standards, you're supposed to have a minimum of 4 feet to allow the doors to swing and the person in the wheelchair to still have space to maneuver. So moving that door over actually shortened that to somewhat under 4 feet. And I was trying to put a closet in there too. So I just kind of used that space.
So my question about this is, how is it going to fly with the state building code for construction in the floodplain?
Well, the building inspector is going to write us that letter of exemption, which there is in the existing building code of Massachusetts. He can do that.
Right. Okay. So that's important. I think we talked about that on site. I think that makes the difference. If you can get an exemption from the building code, that's very helpful for this process.
Right. We would plan on including that with the filing.
Okay.
And then, obviously it's a challenge. I don't think we've run into issues with access for people who are mobility challenged with ramps versus elevators and things like that. But retrofitting an existing home just to, to be able to make it sort of more humane to have a 5 to 10 minute, getting in the door.
Yeah.
It's something that we haven't had to address yet. But
for the commissioners, just for you to be aware, this would require you all to issue a variance or to take a look at how to make this work under the new floodplain regulations that have been adopted. So, typically our variance procedure requires public benefit and those types of things. In this case, there's a disability and an accessibility and ADA issue, which hasn't come up yet in terms of requests for variances. So it's just something for you to be aware of. This is a unique case. Even with the building code exemption, the commission's regulations for floodplain still apply.
I don't know if this is helpful to add, but this exemption in the building code is only for existing buildings. It's actually quite expressly not allowed for any new structures. I don't know if that affects your thinking at all, but
Okay. Yep, that's a good point. That's helpful.
So if I look at the picture on the left, where in the front of the building with all those planters and stuff, you've got one window, and then you've got 3 windows.
Yeah.
When I look at the picture on the right, I don't see that middle window or the left-hand window. I just see the window on the right.
So the middle window is a proposed change to the house on the first floor. And if you look at the right hand, you can actually see the edge of the existing window casing.
Okay.
Those 2 windows are existing. The larger middle one was just something we were discussing.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is if you take this addition that you want to add and shift it to the right so that you can maintain that closet on the interior, and then you'd have an entrance going straight into the home, and you wouldn't have to have a closet in an unheated portion of the building.
So the reason we wouldn't want to do that, I don't have the full plan. The existing family room is like 9 foot by 10 foot. It's very small. And you would be entering there would be no space for furniture in the room if we were to do that. I think they would be more interested in doing the side entry because that room would not be usable anymore.
And that side entry, what room would that go into? Is it-
Right now, it goes into the so if you see the picture on the bottom left, that's the existing entry door on the side.
Okay.
The reasons we were less interested in that option are it's closer to the water. It's also, I don't know how the neighbors are going to respond, but it's one neighbor's view directly through to the water. I don't know if that's a consideration, but they probably wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well, that's fine too, but I think the addition being in the shadow of the house, as far as any, at least assuming direct floodwaters come from the basin, I think being in the shadow is a smarter way to do it. I still have, as an engineer, I'm just confused as to why the door is centered on that thing and it's not shifted to the right a bit so it doesn't interfere with anything, and then there's a straight shot into the house instead of going in and going to the right a little bit. But
I think, and Rachel, you can probably confirm this, but I think what we would plan on doing is with our submission, we could give you more of the interior space layout, because I get the sense that it's the interior space layout that constricts where you come in, because if you come in to a family room in a way that destroys the family room, you're kind of taking away what little living space he's got on the first floor as is. So I think we could justify the location based on giving you a little bit of a better sense of what the inside looks like beyond just where the closet is. I think we just gave you a little bit of a snippet. And if there's a way to shift it so we don't need the closet, then we certainly can look at that.
no, the shifting I'm talking about is the absolute outside front door that's centered there. Yet,
Oh,
if you went straight in, you'd hit the corner of the closet. It just, and those doors might run into each other.
right. I see what you're saying. And I think, yeah, I think Rachel was trying to say that if you come in straight, then you end up with a little bit of an issue with that 4-foot radius and the swing of the door.
Yeah.
So it's more the swing of the door, Joe?
The
If you
door.
lines,
Sorry, go ahead.
if you line straight up, then the door swing brings you closer to the other door.
Closer to the
door into the house, if I understand it right. And
Yeah.
Rachel, forgive me for a wetland guy getting into.
No, absolutely. So if we move the door over, you have a smaller distance between a sequence of doors, and you don't meet the minimum typical distance for that. I could always make the room a little bit deeper. If we hadn't been trying to put the closet in there, I might have done things a little bit differently and made it more of a straight shot. We were also trying to sort of maintain the exterior look of like having some glass on the sides and not having it just be a closet.
Okay,
So,
that's fine. Okay, well, I don't have all that much of an issue with the one on in the shadow of the house.
Okay, so the public benefit, I would imagine we would put forward, unless we want to do it as an RDA, I think we have to do the variance request, and the public benefit that I would put forward would be, keeping somebody who has accessibility issues in their own home is a public benefit, not just the person you're doing it for, but for any resident who faces that challenge now or in the future. And then we'd provide you with enough support to demonstrate that need exists, both the building inspector's letter and some other evidence of the hardship, and then that we're mitigating by trying to make it as least impactful to the resource area as possible, by putting it in the shadow of the flood and all that.
Yeah, and Tom, did you address the reasons, did you request, I'm sorry if I was writing things down earlier or looking for your email, did you request from the commission whether or not they would consider an RDA for this?
I didn't. I mean, the nice thing about an RDA is, my goal is to get something that Eileen and her husband can start using as soon as possible. And
Yeah.
an RDA is a little bit under the radar and sets less precedent. So that's, it would certainly be, but it's certainly different than what we've done with RDAs in the past. I would acknowledge that, but it might.
Yeah. And I think actually, like, if this was the idea that, like, I think what Rachel said is it's going to be heated, it's really part of the house. That changes it. If you could consider it a shed, do you know what I mean? Sort of like attached to the house, unheated, not a solid foundation really, but just a breezeway kind of a situation. I think that then an argument could be made for the RDA as opposed to an NOI. But given that this is really an addition to the house, I think that changes it.
It was unheated.
Oh, is it unheated?
I think.
Sorry, yes, we were planning to heat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's like my folks had something like this before they moved out of their house, and it was sort of an entry, and it has its own little separate heater system so that you don't lose all the house heat when you walk in.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of keeps it warm to serve as that buffer. Just same thing as when you go into like Dumula's or someplace like that, and you go through that initial entry. There's heat, but it's not the same heat that's inside the building. It's a separate system typically.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Can I ask one more question? The grade of the driveway is actually a couple of inches above the grade of the finished floor of the house. And so when we remove the stone that's there now to put in something like chip stone that will be better for putting a wheelchair over, does that need to be something we include?
Yeah, I would include any of the landscaping change in materials that would be associated with this as well.
Okay.
Any resurfacing of the driveway, should be included.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we have to, I think there's a good depth of gravel there, so it's probably just removal of gravel. But if we typically, for driveways and stuff, the commission has allowed sort of up to a 6-inch cut, and I think we could probably stay consistent with that. I don't know the exact elevation changes, but whatever we have to request a variance or a waiver from, we'll do, and we'll make an argument for the performance standards as best we can. Okay, so our plan is to try to put together an application to get in on the next available meeting we can make, and we're going to have to race to do that. We need, to get Everett to put together a site plan. He does have the survey plan, and we do have this. Now we know which option we're going with. We'll try to get this in the door ASAP. So just be ready.
Okay.
If the commission wants to do a site visit in the meantime, that would help speed the process up. Again, we'd really like to get this so that so the builder could actually maybe try to get something in for the winter.
People want to do a site visit? I don't have any
I
need
don't see
for
a
it.
need to, but
I don't think so.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next item's George Hasseltine, 149 State Street.
Okay. All right. Let's see who's here. Is this Charlie?
I'm so nervous. What happened?
Anyone else here for 149 State Street? Is anyone here to speak for that?
Got Charlie holding your hand up. Okay, unmute yourself, Charlie.
Yes, this is Tim Toomey. I'm using my son's computer tonight. So that's why you had to put your email address in there. I had to use his to get onto the Zoom thing. So it's Tim Toomey, and I'm representing the Gordon Realty Holdings and also George Hazeltine. I'm the licensed site professional that will be managing the handling of any soils out there that might be impacted by a previous spill. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Um, I sent a letter in last week. Julie, did you get that?
Yep, I have it. I believe, is this it?
Yes.
Yep.
Anyways, the site was a location where some chlorinated solvents were released to the ground, and it was basically on the top portion of that area is where the major spill occurred. And throughout the property, there is some residual contamination, and the addition is on the opposite side of the building. And the addition will involve digging a footing and placing a foundation for it there. So the soils that will be generated during the construction of the footing and foundation will be managed on site and will not be disposed of any place. If it was, it would be managed under my license. But there's just going to be a reuse of the soils over there. In the interim, when the soils come out of the ground, it'll be placed on a poly sheet and covered with a poly sheet to keep any rainwater that might hit the pile and get it to travel. Also, a silt sock will be put down on the down gradient edge of where the pile is going to be placed. And once the foundation is poured, they'll place the materials back into that hole because it's going to be a loading dock area, so it's going to be above grade. So there's they're going to have to bring in some additional soils. And when they bring in the additional soils, they're going to bring in some stone and place the floor for that loading dock area over the stone. But the stone's going to be vented to the roof in the event that there might be some residual vapors that might be trapped underneath the floor. And that's similar to what they've done to the main building. They have a what they call as a passive venting system to allow the vapors not to get trapped under the floor and maybe cause a problem inside. So my company's Subsurface Remediation Technologies, we're out of Raleigh, and I'm a licensed site professional. And during the construction activities, they'll be relying on me to make sure that the soils are contained and protected from the environment because of the wetlands that occur in the back of the property. And basically, it's a rather simple operation to manage those soils because they're going to be using it on the property. And we'll make sure that everybody is safe when they're doing it. And we've been in business for over 30 years. So I'd be happy to take any questions if you might have some.
Is anything happening with that spill area that's on the other side of the building, or is that just remaining?
Well, that spill occurred a while back, and they had a remedy, and the remedy was to put a passive venting system in there in that area.
Okay.
You can see some of the vent pipes on the plan there, and it's gone through the MCP system, which is the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. So it's gone through that system, and it's closed out. But and when they closed it out, they had a deed restriction called an activity and use limitation placed on the property. And essentially, that's what mobilized your board or your department to, make sure that any kind of handling of soils would be okay under a management of a licensed site professional. So the site's closed out, but as long as the use is remaining the same, which it is, it's okay to operate that with the current conditions. As I said before, I think as the major spill occurred on the opposite side of the building. And that's where most of the remediation or systems are in place to protect the vapors from trapping up underneath the floor. So it's a one-story building. The finished grade is to the street, and the property dips back to the swamp area. But so there's no basement at the building. It's a relatively simple solution for that case.
So if I understood what you said, you said there was residual contamination. I don't think you used that word in other areas of the site as in addition to the spill area. Did you say that?
Yes, there was some on the other side of the building where the foundation's going in, but they did a cleanup over on that side. So
There has been a cleanup where the foundation is going in?
yes.
There is. So, and did you say you have any obligation to sample when you dig the foundation?
Well, we'll use a field instrument, and but I don't anticipate it being any different than what they said in the reports. It's the intent of having a deed restriction on is to make sure that any soils that are generated during a construction project are managed appropriately.
And is where the digging going to be? Is that sort of what kind of surface is there? Is it like, have they sealed that area to prevent infiltration as part of the reason to leave residuals behind, or is it always been exposed? And
Well, the levels there were very low. They were there, but they were very low. They did some remediation. There was a drain over there, and they cleaned out the drain. And this type of chemical, it tends to get into everything, and it travels quite far when it gets into the environment. So this situation is contained. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been closed out. There's a significant amount of work that was done there to evaluate it, and it's really passed the scrutiny of other LSPs working on the project.
do you have a reference to where that investigation closure report would be?
Yeah, it's on the DEP site, and
Just look up the address.
well, you could look up the address, or you could put the release tracking number on it, and you could search on the release tracking number. Just either way, you could get it. Newburyport, 149 State Street. It would come up, the report that I reviewed.
There's the release tracking number is right here. It looks like it's 3-21054. Can you see that?
That's correct. That's correct. The 3 being northeast region, which is this region that the category is in for the DEP.
Okay, we set with this? Any other questions?
On everything.
So it looks like that this was the condition. We just needed this report and this presentation prior to their start of work on the site. So if you're all satisfied with this and they've submitted all the other necessary information prior to the start of work, then they can move forward.
Okay.
Do we have this report, Julie? I don't remember seeing this in the
They sent it to me. I thought that I emailed it to you all or forwarded it to you all for tonight's meeting. If not, I apologize because I knew that they were going to give a presentation. If you'd like, I'll re-email it to you, or I'll email it to you right after the meeting so you can have a copy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Shall we move on?
Well, I'd like to identify a date error. I put October on the letter, not September. So I can change that and send that in tomorrow.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
good point. Okay, no
Sorry.
problem.
In the
Note
hustle
that.
and bustle of trying to get it in there for the meeting, I
Yeah.
really should have.
Okay. At least you got the right year.
Steve, I can't believe you missed that.
Well, you know, getting old.
Oh, well. Okay, so we'll get that date changed and
Move forward.
we're ready to go.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
If you have any
Thank
other
you.
questions, you feel free to call.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, so when's our longest old and new business section? So on to certificates of compliance and requested determinations, et cetera. First one is Clary Code 2, Keolis Commuter Services, Railroad Right-of-Way request for determination.
Yes, good evening. This is Clary Kutu, and I'm here for the RDA in reference to the Vegetation Management Plan, a 5-year plan, and the boundaries, the wetland determination boundaries for your, for Newburyport and the jurisdictional wetland areas. So with me tonight, Matt, are you on?
Let's see, Matt Donovan, yep. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Matt. There you go.
Yeah, I just did. This is Matt Donovan.
Okay,
from FTC.
so Matt's going to present you the maps, and I'll be available for questions. So, thank you.
Okay, Matt, I have the notice of intent up here, and so this is, I just scrolled to the plan page, and I have the revised plan as well, right here. So just let me know if you'd like me to move to any different part of your application.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll just give a brief overview of the work that these maps are for, and then we can get into the map afterwards and address any questions. So just to start, we do have a vegetation management website for Keolis. It has these maps on them, and as well as a 5-year vegetation management plan and the yearly operational plan. It's always up to date and updated, and it was included in the submission packet that we submitted. It's a handy tool to stay updated for anyone who does. We will continue to send it via certified mail as we are required to do under the regulations, but this is an easier tool for some of you, I'm sure. So the RDA was submitted as part of CMR 11, as well as specific sections of CMR 10, which require us to submit the delineated maps to confirm that the boundaries of the resource areas are accurate. The requirements are part of a 5-year vegetation management plan, which is designed to manage and control vegetation along the railroad, necessary to keep it safe and for the railroad and the public. As the plan is executed, great measures are taken to keep the sensitive areas protected, and the sensitive area restrictions are listed and described in detail in CMR 11, as well as Section 8 of our vegetation management plan. The plan is regulated on all levels from federal to state to municipal. And as part of the 5-year plan, your commission, the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, and the Department of Agricultural Resources are supplied annually with a yearly operational plan, which is consistent with the vegetation management plan and goes into a little more detail about the vegetation management activities for each year throughout the 5-year program. The vegetation management plan includes an integrated vegetation management approach where chemical application as well as physical and mechanical methods are used to combat the vegetation. Keolis has implemented best management practices that are used throughout the plan in an effort to limit the chemical application, which has been an objective for them. The map that we provided you with is mainly made for the chemical portion of the plan, made with USGIS and MassGIS layers to determine the boundaries of the sensitive and protected areas. And we do also get a list of all the private wells. Not that there are any in your town, but we do check to see if there are any private wells along the railroad, and we get that from the Mass DAR. So as you can see, there are areas The only, in Newburyport, there's just a very small section of railroad that goes through your town, and it's entirely a light blue section. So what this light blue section means is that it's in proximity to a wetland and that it's a limited spray area. So because it's a light blue, it means that we are able to apply the herbicides there once every year. Just because it does say that, it doesn't mean we'll be spraying it every year. In these areas, in any of the marked areas that are blue or yellow or light blue, and obviously it's just blue here, it's really only sprayed on an as needed basis because it is known to have resources in proximity. So more of an effort in these areas are the track structure itself will always be sprayed in this area, like directly down on the track structure, because there's no other alternatives to control the vegetation, which is on the track bed, which is federally mandated to keep completely free of vegetation. Outside of the track structure, more of an effort is taken into physical and mechanical methods to limit the chemical application in these areas. So the chemicals that are used all come from, before I mention that, so the tracks themselves in the field, they're marked with blue plates that correspond to this blue area. So the applicator, who's licensed and certified to do the work in the state, rides along and we'll see that, and we'll have these maps on hand. There's an environmental monitor who's a direct employee of Keolis's environmental team with these maps to be aware of when these restricted zones are coming up. So they'll be aware that the zones are coming up and work with the applicator as necessary to control these areas. So the chemicals that are used all come from the approved sensitive area material list, which is provided by the Mass DAR. And the details for that can be found on the DAR website, as well as our vegetation management plan. And I think that is a good overview of the process for this work. And I can open the floor up to you if you have any questions regarding anything.
Can I just back up a little bit to the very beginning and I just want to clarify this because I'm afraid I was misunderstanding something. We talked about on the phone, there was this MACC guidance document that got sent out to all the conservation commissions in the state about these RDAs coming from you guys and what you were requesting. At the very beginning of your presentation tonight, you quoted from the regulations that say that you're required to submit something with the Conservation Commission to confirm wetland boundaries. So I guess my question is this in order to satisfy the regulation that you must confirm wetland boundaries, or is this an RDA for the commission to approve the work because it has no impact?
Matt, I'll take the question. And sorry, there is a train in the background. The guidance, the regulation, the rights-of-way management program under MDAR, Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, requires, in order for them to approve the 5-year vegetation management plan under 333 CMR 11, we have to go to the towns to review and do wetland determinations for boundaries as it relates to chemical application. And what you are seeing before you are the setbacks in the resource area maps that depict your resource areas within your town. Each town is different. Each town is absolutely different. Some towns have no spray zones like you. Some towns have everything. So it's very difficult to have a boilerplate response from everybody. But what it is important is that these maps are approved because they will form part of the 5-year vegetation management plan. The vegetation management plan includes, like Matt was saying, an integrated vegetation management approach. And why is that? Because in limited spray zones, if we are better suited to maintain this area by cutting back the brush or cutting the trees, because we can't spray, if there are trees, we can't spray the trees, we need to cut them. And if they are in a no spray zone, that means we can't control vegetation with chemical applications. So we automatically need to maintain that area because it's a federal requirement by using mechanical means. So the DAR requires that under a VMP, we incorporate the integrated vegetation management plan, or integrated pest management, which is also known as the integrated vegetation management. And that is to the extent practicable, reduce the amount of spray and chemical applications within areas, resource areas. Does that explain, Julia?
Well, it sort of does, but you did say the same thing that Matt said at the beginning, which is that what you're required to do is to get a wetland determination for boundaries. You're required to go to each community and determine the wetland boundaries.
Correct.
So I guess still, submitting an RDA is not how you would get a determination of wetland boundaries.
Right. Well, the regulation, the 333 CMR, wetland determinations, requires us to submit a boundary, an RDA, and not an ANRAD or NOI.
So, but then you're requesting the decision that you're requesting from the commission is a -2 or a -5, neither of which is a determination of boundaries.
Well,
in your request for determination, you're not
I'm
requesting.
sorry, I have my dog. Let me mute you for a bit.
So I'm going to go back to your request for determination. In your request for determination, you're requesting whether the boundaries depicted on the reference are accurately delineated, which is what you're required to do. That's not an approval of the work, and because in your cover letter, you're asking the commission to vote to approve the work, but really what you want is for the commission to approve the boundaries. You've checked off B, which is consistent with what your regulations require.
Right.
But what you've asked the commission to do is give you a -2 or a -5 determination, neither of which goes along with this request.
Well, actually it does. What we're asking in the cover letter and what is perfectly described within the RDA is the determination of whether the boundaries of resource areas depicted on the plan referenced below are accurately delineated. And what I'm saying, or we're requesting within the cover letter, specifically says Keolis is currently in the process of renewing the 5-year VMP, and in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, RDAs issued for work conforming to 333 CMR 11 are in effect for the 5-year life of the VMP and must be renewed with the VMP. Accordingly, and enclosed, please find the RDA to renew the wetland maps along the right-of-way in your municipality. And the enclosed maps represent the location of the permanent markings. So these maps have been reflected, have been revised to reflect the latest revisions. So, you know, in the interest, and mind you, we have over 100 communities. And what we are recommending and suggesting is not what each community does, but for most part, out of the 100+ communities that we have, for most part, they always resort to number 2 and number 5. So some communities have number 2 and they list everything, number 3, and they list all the exemptions. Some communities have number 5 and list all the exemptions, because it depends on the resource areas you have within your community. So this is a plain suggested boilerplate to all the communities. And each community, as in the past, they issued their own based on the jurisdictions. You know, it's not verbatim. It's not, how can I say, it's not meant to specifically address your community. It's a boilerplate for all communities. So for most part, that's usually what they do. They either give a -2, a -3, or -5, a -4. I have -6 too, because it depends on what is happening within each town. So that being said, the guidance is an opinion letter from the MAC and MSCMP. It's not a policy or a guidance document issued by Mass DEP. And it's up to the commission to determine what is the best approach. Now, mind you, in recent years, I believe you've issued a -6 for this area. So the Form 2 that you issued in 2016 had a -6. So that being said, you know, I think it's worth the discussion.
I don't have that in front of me, an actual determination. What is the -6?
I'll read it to you. Let me see. If you bear with me. Okay. A -6 determination reads, the area and/or work described in the request is not subject to review and approval by, and then the name of your municipality.
And that's probably because it's outside. Maybe you're outside the buffer zone, which is one of the reasons why I was asking Matt if he could get us a more detailed map of this area so that the commission could see how far, whether or not the work you're proposing, we see the rail line, so we can see, you know, we can see, sorry, I'm trying to get the map back here. We can see the actual tracks and we can see the wetland area, but we don't see the buffer zone. Okay, so we don't know whether or not you're actually in our jurisdiction or not. And we, not only do we not see the buffer zone, we don't see any sort of delineation of the boundaries of your work area. So how far out are you doing vegetation management from the tracks, and how far does that go into or not go into the buffer zone of this wetland? So if the commission issued a -6 in 2016, it could have been because they were told, based on maybe the previously submitted map, which shows no wetlands in this entire area, that it was irrelevant, that you didn't have to file anything with us because you weren't in a buffer zone, you weren't in our jurisdiction. That might be why the -6 was done. This new map shows that you may be within our jurisdiction, but we have no idea how far into the jurisdiction. Are you within 25 feet with your vegetation management? Are you actually within the wetland itself, or are you outside of the buffer zone entirely even now? So there's no distances on here, and there's no delineation of the actual work area. And that's what I talked with Matt about earlier today. I feel like it's very hard for us to know how to review this request without the, you know, sort of a finer scale of information.
Yeah, and from what I can figure, your track is well within the 25-foot no disturb of that that blue V-shaped. All you need to do is look at a current aerial map, and it is clearly within 25 feet of what is clearly wetlands. So certainly
yeah, so it's the 10-foot buffer zone that is in question. And yes, it isn't within 100 feet of this whole section of the wetland. The only one that is really applicable in this case is within the 100-foot buffer zone.
It's most certainly closer than that.
So,
right, but yeah, I guess.
So let me explain. I think, Matt, what we need to explain is how the setbacks are established. So even if we are within that 100 feet and within the buffer zone, we still can spray provided that we are in compliance with the 333 CMR 11, right? So the setbacks are specifically addressing certain resource areas and how those resource areas are depicted within or identified within the herbicide application regs. So if you, I know you're not sharing your screen, Matt, but if you were to go to the VMP, it specifically identifies all the resource areas and the different setbacks requirements for that. So what I feel is confusing is what are the setbacks for a buffer zone, right?
Well,
whereas if you have a direct 10-foot direct wetland resource area within the right-of-way, that would be a complete yellow zone. So within that buffer zone, you might have a limited spray, which is what you have now. And it might not change from that light blue to a yellow because it doesn't meet that criteria. So,
well, I'll be honest with you, your original map didn't even include the wetlands that are existing.
But was it light blue?
It was still this map.
Yes, it was still light blue. So what we opted to do was to completely delineate the area as a limited chemical application area.
I think what we're asking for is a more detailed map that shows the distances from the track to where the wetland is.
Yeah, so the entire track is within the 100-foot buffer zone for that entire resource area. There's no question about that. There's about 500 feet of track that is within the 100-foot buffer zone area, which is why it is depicted as a blue zone, which is how the regulations require us to delineate these areas. So there's no question about it that this is all within the 100-foot buffer zone for that entire V-shaped resource area. The 100-foot buffer zone that you're asking me to put on wouldn't change that because the entire track is within that 100-foot buffer.
Okay, so what you're saying really is that unless the only thing that would change this for us and for you regulatorily would be if the line was going directly through the wetland area and not just within the buffer zone. So because it's like within the buffer zone, it doesn't matter whether it's 10 feet from the buffer zone or 99 feet from the buffer zone, it's going to be delineated as light blue. It's going to be managed in a light blue zone, as a light blue zone.
Unless it has other resource areas intersecting it, like a surface water supply area or interim wellhead protection area or a culvert or an intermittent stream, that sort of thing.
Which this doesn't have any of those. This just with this particular case, the only issue is buffer zone, and it really is irrelevant where that buffer zone lies. Just that it's buffer zone and not direct wetland impact. Correct?
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, and so why exactly would it be wrong for us to issue a positive determination 2A to approve the wetland boundaries?
So what you're saying with that is that, yes, you think it's a accurate wetland boundary, but what you're obliging us to do is, as required under the Form 2, is to issue an NOI.
Right. Any positive determination under the Form 2 requires an NOI to be filed for work that is regulated by the Mass DAR, the work that is being approved by the Mass DAR.
So by issuing a -2 or a -3, the commission simultaneously approves the boundaries and approves the work.
Correct. So you can explain within the -2, work being proposed under the approved VMP for 2021, 2025, and the wetland boundaries. And that covers, that's an example of what other communities have done. Or a -5 or a -3, depending on the resource areas you have. You only have buffer zone.
Yeah, so common language would be that the work conforms to the vegetation management plan as provided and approved by the Mass DAR.
And that includes both chemical and mechanical. Not just chemical, because in limited zones, I would prefer not to spray chemicals if I can keep the vegetation cut back and maintained over the course, of the year, in years to come. But that's important that you understand as well.
I guess what's a negative for the commission if we issue a positive that you have to file a notice of intent?
I will appeal it. I will appeal it because it's just not the way to, doesn't help me. And it just really, not me in particular, but it just doesn't approve the work that's going to happen within that limited spray zone. And that is really important because the VMP covers both mechanical and chemical. If I go through this space in this area, the second week of May, and this area seems to have, it's wet. For whatever reason, it rained and it's wet, I can't spray and I won't spray. So what I need to do is cut it back and use mechanical means. So we have to have that clear.
Could you
Oh,
explain?
there's no question it's got to be clear. That's not there's zero question that it's got to be clear.
Could you explain what we would be approving with a -2, a -3, and a -5?
I can read it if you would like. So the negative determinations, the -1 is area described in request is not an area subject to protection under the act or the buffer zone, which, some communities do have that. The work described, then -2 is the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent. -3, the work described in the request is within the buffer zone as defined in the regulations, but will not alter an area subject to protection under the act. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent subject to the following conditions, if any. -4, work described in the request is not within an area subject to protection under the act, including the buffer zone. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent unless and until said work alters an area subject to protection. And -5, the area described in the request is subject to the protection under the Act, since the work described therein meets the requirements for the following exemptions as specified in the Act and the regulations. No notice of intent is required. So usually what many of our communities do is they mark the -5 and list all the exemptions applicable to the jurisdictions within their towns. And what's the other one? So those are the most common ones: -5, -2,
-3.
and -3, correct.
Yeah, well, it sounded like a -3 would be the most appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't see what advantage anybody would have with an NOI, but
Right.
Well, make a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
Second,
Paul Haley,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola.
Yes.
I'm going to vote present. All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, Joseph Bavaro, 177 State Street, request for determination.
Okay. I'm gonna allow TJ Melvin to talk. You can unmute yourself. If there's anyone else here for this, raise your hand. TJ, you wanna, are you representing the project?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay.
TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. Here on behalf of the applicant. The project located at 177th Street, State Street. It's also known as 3 Newburyport Turnpike in Newbury.
I don't know if it's just me, but you're really garbled.
Yeah.
No, I can't really understand him.
Yeah, we're having trouble with your audio, TJ. I don't know if you can adjust it.
Not really. You sound like a robot right now.
With a cold.
Are you there? Yeah, it's not a.
Try again, TJ.
Yeah, there. If you're talking, TJ, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, it's slightly better.
Any better now?
Oh, that's a little bit better.
Sorry, something's going on with my AirPods and they kind of died on me while I was trying to switch back.
That's much better.
Okay, sorry. So my name is TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant for the project located at 177 State Street. You may have also seen it known as 3 Newburyport Turnpike in Newbury. So brief overview. The applicant's proposing a 15,000 square foot mixed use building that will be located at 3 Newburyport Turnpike. The entire building will be located in the town of Newbury. This site is the old Circle Finishing site that had burned down, I believe, about 15 years ago, and pretty much has remained vacant since all the materials have been removed from the site. Currently, there's a large area of kind of deteriorated pavement that remains, and about 95% of the site is clear. There's a few trees down by the wetlands. relative to the work in Newburyport, we are looking to pave pretty much the same exact area as what is existing today, and there'd be some minor grading just along the backside of that. We're also proposing a curb cut to Newburyport Turnpike, and our force main will kind of cut the corner just right at the 100-foot buffer and connect over into the city's sewer system. It's kind of a brief overview. Like I said, the northern part of that plan shows, you see the dash line coming through is the Newbury line. And if you go actually to the third sheet, I believe, kind of shows that there's a dotted line which represents the existing pavement line. It falls almost exactly on our proposed line.
Which, this is existing conditions. Which sheet are you referring to?
So if you went to sheet 3.
Sheet 3. That's sheet 5?
Yeah.
So is this sheet 3? Yeah, here's sheet 3.
Sorry. So you can see kind of like that dotted line that goes through those 4 parking spaces. It's generally follows the same sheet. Yep. Yeah. So that's
This
the existing.
90-degree angle here. That's existing pavement.
Yeah. And then so there'd be some minor grading where it has snow storage, and then that's pretty much just going to remain lawn as it is today.
So there's, right. So in the area of snow storage and these parking spaces and along the roadway here is not pavement or is pavement?
In the area where we're proposing pavement is currently pavement.
Okay, got it.
So where
So no removal.
that circled 4 is right now is pavement?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, not a lot for us to look at.
No.
You want to just describe the stormwater system briefly?
Yes. So the plans that were originally submitted for the RDA have they're actually revised this morning. The area of work within the Newburyport triangle there hasn't changed. Essentially, all the stormwater is draining from the Newburyport portion of the site. There used to be a curb inlet down where down at like the corner where it has the number 1 on the parking space. Kind of where the outline of the drainage basin connects to the pavement. So originally we had a curve opening, and it was going to flow into a sediment forebay into an infiltration basin. We've since revised the plan to include a trench drain, collect the stormwater, get it into a contact CDS unit for pretreatment, and then discharge to the infiltration basin. So essentially, the grading didn't change, just the means of how we got the water to the basin did.
So the water is being directed into Newbury, not into Newburyport.
Correct.
And so that snow storage is just going to drain over land into the wetland there?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay. Get a motion?
Motion to issue a -2.
Second.
Okay, Paul Haley,
Yeah.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to take a few minute bio break?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, please.
I do too. So we will take a break and we will be back in 5 minutes or less.
You're on. I was trying to see what your everyone's. We're just on hold. Yeah, I wanted to see whether you were losing battery power, but. it should
Oh,
be all right.
thanks.
I couldn't tell because it's like on. Well, three. So I'm not gonna mess with it. Okay. I was trying to do something. Aha.
All right. Annie, you back yet? Here we are. All right, let's resume this meeting. Get a motion to open the public hearings.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yeah.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender. Is that a yes, Jane?
Sorry, yes, I muted myself, sorry.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, first item is Christopher Haran, Seacoast Homes LLC, 192 Northern Boulevard, notice of intent, continued from 8/18.
Hey, good evening. Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. I believe Lisa Mead and Chris Haran are also on. I was thinking it might be nice to start. I can start just with our response with the packet we got at the last hearing. If you wanted to go through that, what I did in my response letters, I just snipped images of each page and then tried to provide a little bit of a narrative with it. The first item, the overall overview, I'd like to, it's not entirely correct, the areas, the way they're colored in, and I think the best way to deal with that is when I go through that plan that we just had up, I'll go through those areas, what we're counting and what we're not. We originally did our areas that were not vegetated based on a field survey that was done last year. And then after our first hearing and the site visit with the commission, we then took that and compared it to a 2019 aerial that was taken earlier in the year and a 2017 aerial. And we took out areas where we had shading that would be indicative of potentially vegetation, you know, not absolute proof of vegetation, but we tried to be conservative and only include those areas that also appeared to be unvegetated on those aerials to span a longer time period than the only snapshot we had, which was an on-ground survey done, you know, back in, I forget the exact date, but it was like the spring, late spring maybe of 2019. So if we can go to the next page. Okay, in this case, the upper undated image, the woody vegetation, both in the foreground and in the background, looks smaller. So I do suspect this is an older photo by a substantial amount of time. But the one thing that this is consistent with what we've been saying is that, you know, this lot is something that vegetation has changed over time. There are anthropogenic impacts. There are just natural impacts. Vegetation on a barrier island is dynamic. It dies off in some areas, whether it's from nematodes or people trampling it. It comes back in some areas. In this case, the lower photo, which is the one from the fall, is fairly consistent with the areas that are shown on our survey plan. And I'll go over those in more detail. And were we to do a complete survey of the site on the upper image, we may find that there are other areas that are vegetated now that might not have been vegetated then. So every time any NOI comes into you guys, you're getting a snapshot of the existing condition at the time that we begin work on that property in terms of detailing existing conditions. You know, we don't do a forensic analysis going back into sort of history of every single lot that comes in front of you. We've made an effort in this filing to give you a lot of detail, you know, far more detail than, you know, other filings that while we've been doing these hearings, you know, you did one where somebody gave you a photograph of an area that included some vegetation, and they used that as a planting area. You didn't have a quantification, you know, anywhere near the level of detail we've tried to provide here. But so if we can go on to the next one, the next page. So in this, oh, sorry, go back to that one you just were on. So we looked at these photos, both of them, and you look at the telephone pole. You also look at the bottom image is at a lower elevation, it's a lower angle. And they're really not all that different. They're clearly taken at different times of year. You can tell by the color of the dune grass in the photograph. And it's hard to discern anything other than that those lines are very consistent with what our survey plan shows. Also, the top one we note does have a car parking, and that is well before any construction activity or anything was occurring in the area. So if we can go on to the next one. So in this photo, if we can, like, I don't know if you can zoom right down on the photo. There's a couple things. One is the arrow to the right is actually pointing to lumber that was piled up, not a vehicle. And
I'm going to interrupt you there, Tom.
Yeah.
That is not lumber. That is part of the scaffolding. You can see on the me map that there's a ladder on that truck, or
maybe
or whatever it is.
All right, it did not appear when I zoomed in, it did not appear to be a vehicle, but that area was part of the area that was occupied by the prior home, and the contractors did creep over the property line in that area. And we did prepare, I'll go over what we did in response, but one thing I do want to note, and you can see it along the area where you traced with the red line, there was actually a green construction snow fence that they installed in an effort to try to contain people to the areas that they thought were already impacted. It's not what was shown on our plan. We acknowledge that, but it was an effort to keep them within areas that had been parked regularly before. The other thing, the vehicle along Northern Boulevard, it may or may not be a contractor. I do know, and I did see, there were other people, fishermen, that were parking there because at the time the town parking lot was closed. If you may remember, because of COVID, there were people coming out to fish, and they were just trying to find anywhere to park. So, but any damage outside those we surveyed as sand areas in our original survey, which was done well before any construction permitted on the site, will be vegetated. So if we can then go to the next sheet, can't remember what's on that one. So yeah, so the main thing here is we identified on another sheet which I submitted today. It's essentially a sketch. We overlaid on the ground. We picked up all areas of the ground that were disturbed with tire tracks or signs that they've been used for storage, what have you. We overlaid that with our original survey of the conditions before any construction was done, and we created a sketch that shows all areas that were disturbed outside of those areas that were unvegetated when we first started. And those areas will be revegetated, whether they were done by the contractors or not. I mean, clearly the areas over by the house on 63rd was done. Clearly the areas in that area that's been used by the neighbors for parking along 63rd were contractors. The area along Northern Boulevard, I think, was both contractors and other folks parking there. But any areas that were vegetated based on our original survey of the area will be vegetated by the contractor, regardless of the outcome. So if we can go on, I think, is that the last page, Julia?
No, I believe there's another
Is
page.
there one more?
Yep. Here it is.
Okay. Yeah, so rather than using an aerial to definitively interpret, you know, areas of impact and all that, we actually did on the ground work. So if we can then open up the sheet that I sent to you.
All right, let me just see if I can find it. Is it
No,
this
not that.
one? Is hold on. This one?
Right. So this shows the actual areas on the ground evidence of disturbance of the dune, and it was overlaid with the areas that we surveyed. And those areas that are shown in olive green are additional disturbance beyond what existed when we permitted. So those areas will be restored regardless of the outcome of our permitting here. So I don't want to dwell so much on the contractor impact. What we are including as areas that are not vegetated do not include any gain from any contractor impacts. We never have counted that, and we are in our filing. So if we can go now to the sheet.
Just a minute, Tom.
Yeah.
Everything in green, you're not including.
We are not including. Those are areas that are currently, well, some of them are actually coming back. Some of those contractor parking appears not to have killed off the roots, and it looks like dune grass is coming back in some of those areas, but we will supplement those plantings to make sure that all of those areas are in the state they were in before the work was done.
Some of them are in the proposed landscaping or paving, aren't they? I mean,
well, so some of them are, yes. So we are counting them as vegetated in our NOI. Okay, so if we impact those areas, then we would be mitigating elsewhere for them under our NOI. So for the purposes of our NOI, we're asking you to consider all those areas that are shown there as green as vegetated, even though they may be different at this time.
okay, so you're dealing in the square footage areas versus the actual location.
I'm sorry, I don't know if my internet was going a little bit.
Footage as opposed to the actual location.
Right. So if this project never goes forward, those are the areas that will be planted. If this project goes forward, then those are treated as vegetated and mitigated for.
Okay.
Okay. So if we could go on to the 3-panel one, the one that you had up first, Julia.
Okay, this one, no, sorry.
Yeah, this is why I know it was late. This is why I tried to email you late one PDF so that we just had one.
Hold on, I'm gonna have to, hold on a sec. I might have accidentally closed it. Can you just hold on and let me see?
Yeah, yep.
This is the old one. This is the old one. Let me just get up the new one. I think it might be this one. Yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah, this was the one we realized there was an error in the first version that we sent you. So if you can zoom in on the panel on the left.
Okay.
So there's a couple things going on here. One is if you see the areas as sort of a yellowy green, while we're picking up the disturbed areas, I don't know if you remember on the site visit, there was some sandy areas with wispy vegetation. And I said that in some cases, you know, we would pick up sand within those areas, but we certainly wouldn't count the sparse area as non-vegetated. We actually picked up the areas that are just pure sand that are within there. Mainly because of the commission's discussion about some unease about not having any outdoor space associated with the house. So we wanted to see what we could do as far as that went. So those areas shown in yellow, we just picked up, and those are pure sand. There's no vegetation within them. So on the left, if you can, I don't know if you can zoom in any closer, but this shows the areas that we counted, and then we removed portions, and you can see some green areas there. So you've got sand areas, and then as a result of the aerial photograph review, we actually removed some of those areas. And I think you can see those areas are green on that.
Which ones, just, how
So
are they
if you look at the
depicted?
top, so if you look at the top, and if you, I don't know if you can zoom into the point where you can read the labels.
Which labels?
Like pointing to, okay.
Mailboxes, additional sand area type located. What
Right.
specifically?
There should
Can't
be,
we read?
all right, hold on a second. I'm looking, I think the areas that are shaded in green were removed.
Okay, so these, amongst these areas shaded.
Amongst those, right,
tan,
right. Yeah,
These were
those
removed because there's
those
no,
were
I don't
removed from
see
our
a
count.
key.
Well, if you look on that middle panel, you can see where those green shades are. We had colors that were not clearly not vegetated. So we
Got you. Right, in here, this may have had
Right.
vegetation, might have had, yes.
Right, right. So when we did the survey, they were not vegetated. But earlier in the year when this area was done, so it may be that those areas are subject to sort of seasonal vegetation when the Plum Island population is lower and people aren't,
Got it.
using the site.
Okay.
So, Tom, what do you mean by they were removed? I just wanna make
In
sure.
other words, we are no longer counting those areas towards our non-vegetated area. We basically said, okay, between the period of 2017's aerial, the 2019 aerial, and the time when we did our survey, we kind of said, okay, what's the intersection of just sand areas based on all three of those? I still feel very confident in what we did in our on-the-ground survey as far as capturing a snapshot in time when we did the survey. It was an accurate survey of what wasn't vegetated when we did it. When we used the aerial photographs, because there was a lot of questions from the commission about, looking at street side, looking at different aerials. So we tried to look at the 2019, 2017 to basically say, okay, are there areas that we counted that within recent history were vegetated? And we found those areas and we basically said, okay, there's dark shading on these aerials. So we pulled those areas out.
Yeah. So, right. So with this whole area that used to be shaded as sand, now the areas that are green are counted as vegetation, and only this gray stripey is considered sand. Yeah.
Right. And the problem, and I think part of the reason there was some confusion, Joe, in how you interpreted that first page on your thing was because when we sent in this document the first time, it ended up being 3 images, and it was meant to show you sort of on the left, just the pure plan, the middle sheet being, okay, here's it with the aerial, and then on the right, here it is with our proposed plan. We were trying to show you how we built where we got to.
Right, but the reality is your existing conditions plan was a year old. You didn't update it before you submitted the NOI, and things had changed.
Well, the things that had changed when we went to file were things that we didn't want to try to benefit from because there were contractor impacts when we went to file. So we did look at the 2019 aerial, which was another snapshot in time. We looked at 2017. And I think the things from the October 2019 street side are very consistent with what we claimed. You know, they're at angles, but we looked for features within those images including the telephone pole is a clear one. You have to remember the angles those photos are taken at can be deceiving. We also, in evaluating that, one of the big changes we made, if you remember in our earlier plans, we had the sort of typical surveyor edge of shrub line. And what you're seeing on that plan is actually like dozens and dozens of survey shots. You're actually looking at a defined edge of shrub, not just a rough line. So in order to look at that street side image that was looking at that tree that's kind of right along Northern Boulevard, we actually picked that up so we could compare what we had with those street side images. So we did take into account what was shown in the 2019 images in our overall evaluation. And we felt like what we did was an overly conservative way of showing to the commission that we were trying to not overclaim what was there for non-vegetated. You know, we've got a lot that has a sewer connection, a sewer betterment's been paid. You know, it's a double lot, and it's a lot that I think all of the information that we've compiled demonstrates that it has been heavily impacted by people on and off for a long time. And when we get into what we're proposing, and if we can go over to the next panel over.
Yep, hold on.
Okay, so the thing that we are proposing to do, and you can see on this plan, is we start, if you can zoom in a little bit by the driveway on 63rd. Okay, so along the left-hand side of the driveway, a foot off the edge of the driveway, going up to the walk to the stairs to get into the house, there'll be a split rail fence. That split rail fence essentially starts at the house, runs all along the side of the stairs, runs along the driveway, so it's right in there, runs right up to about a foot off the pavement, runs along the pavement, runs along the property line, along Northern. We can't run along the pavement because in that case, the pavement is actually, city property. Then we run up to a foot off the pavement on 65th, all the way over, and then we come all the way down.
You mean the property line, not the pavement?
Okay, property line.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, down on this side, we're running along property line. And then we run over to the building right there, right before propane tanks. And I'll show you on the other site plan, it's easier to see, but I don't know if you can see there, we put in a clamshell patio, like 10 by 10, right before the propane tanks off to the side there to give that outdoor recreation space. The other thing, if you look in the building, the hatched area. So the light tan is a second floor balcony. So the first floor, the underside of the first floor is 8.5, 9 feet up, right? So the second floor is like 20 something feet up. So that is way up in the air and it's not going to affect vegetation at all. The hatched area is at a 1.5 to 1 ratio. So 1.5 height to 1 in ratio of counting vegetation survival. You may recall in the past, the commission has considered 1 to 1 as a reasonable interpretation of what would survive. We again didn't want to make the claim that we were overreaching on things, so we went to the 1.5 to 1 standard, which has come out of marine fisheries and Army Corps studies recently about elevated structures going through wetlands and full survival underneath. So in this case, you may also remember, and we show a dashed line now that runs along that row of piles right behind the utility chase. The skirting for the structure runs across there. everything behind there is open up in the air about 9 feet off grade. So we believe we can get vegetation to grow under there. All of that goes into our vegetation table. And if we can go to the site plan, I can show you what the vegetation totals end up at, even with the clamshell patio.
Taking me a while to find the site plan. Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go way back.
Actually, if you can go back to that profile view for a second, you were right on. Back over, you were right in that area.
Nope. This one, nope. This one, nope. Hold on. Sorry. There's just too many new ones tonight to be able to get them straight.
You're talking about the profile, Tom?
Yeah, I was just thinking while we're talking about survival under the building, but we can get back to that in a bit. Why don't we zoom in on that impact table?
Okay. Yep. And I will look while we're doing this. I will look for the profiles.
Right, you had them open like 2 or 3 tabs away.
I know. So many of these.
So claiming the area under that elevated portion of the building that's wide open underneath, and it'll all be fenced off. There will not be easy, access, so it won't be an area used for storage underwards or whatever. And those new little areas we picked up, we end up with going from 6864 to 7013 with that patio. And we would be fine removing the patio, but we do like it, and you guys did express some concern that, not having some outdoor space would encourage some kind of encroachment in the future. So we tried to take that seriously and come up with a way where we commit to a lot of vegetation improvements. We're going to improve dune function by protecting the vast majority of the vegetated part of the site with that split rail fence. The other thing you'll see on the plan when we zoom out is we also picked up the area where it's regularly trampled. Now the vegetation is still growing, but there's a regular path that people seem to cut from Northern Boulevard across. And it's, again, just evidence of the human disturbance on the site, and that kind of thing will end. There'll be no more parking, outside of the existing or proposed driveway. There'll be, the snow plows will have to find somewhere else to put the snow. They'll no longer be dumping it up on that corner because the fence will be there. Tom,
I have whenever you want the elevations, I've got them.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you can see in the upper left, you might be able to see that little diagonal line that kind of runs over from like the sand area on Northern to the to 65th. And I think my guess is it's a shortcut taken by folks who are parking to go fishing. So they're kind of cutting across to walk up. It's not a huge impact, but it is kind of like a little deer trail impact that goes on there. Not the biggest item to go over with you guys, but again, it's part of the ongoing impacts to the site.
So Tom, I had asked about a fence along the adjacent on 65th Street, the adjacent lot.
So Lisa and Chris did look into that, and I'll let them answer that. If Lisa, are you unmuted?
Now she is. Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you. The applicant will put a fence along there, along 65th, on the 5-family unit down to about where the driveway is. We don't have it on any of these plans, but Stephen, we talked about that after the last meeting, and he's able to put a fence along there.
Okay, because I was out there a couple of weeks ago, and it's a disaster out there right now. I don't know if it's contractors with with his property or somebody else doing work on the street, but no, there's a pickup truck with a huge trailer and they're just parking wherever they want on that property.
So I do have a question about that though. So the fence is not on our current plan for that property on our order of conditions. So we'd like to get it in sooner rather than later because pretty soon we're going to sell the last unit and turn over control of the property. So what do we need to do to modify that in a, kind of a short fashion, or do we need a vote of the board to allow it and then just add it on to our final as-built plan?
Or is that something that Julia could do administratively?
Well, I think what Lisa just said is the right way to go. Whereas if the commission tonight can sort of like vote to agree that that's a modification that they would approve, then when you come for, if you put that in, you come for the certificate of compliance. It'll be a minor modification. It'll, to the plans at that point that the commission will have already acknowledged that they would agree to accept, and it could be wrapped into a certificate of compliance.
Okay,
That's
simplest,
I think.
Thank you. So when we're done with this discussion, we can address that, but we're happy to do it, and we'd rather do it sooner rather than later.
That's great.
Okay.
So with that, we'll end up between this property and the next one over, really providing some level of protection to a good chunk of the dune in this area. And you'll have, we're proposing not just mitigative planting in terms of adding beach grass, but we're also talking about expanding the beach plum stand that's there, controlling the bittersweet that is slowly overtaking a really nice stand of beach plum. And if we can get the bittersweet out of it, it will continue to thrive and provide, wildlife functions as well as dune function. There's a couple little plum bushes that are growing within where the footprint of the house would be. I mean, they're like 2 feet tall, and those would be transplanted, and good chance they would survive. But even if they don't, we are talking about supplementing with additional beach plum. So all of that, I think, is something where, with the fencing off, we're basically taking this area that's been impacted over the years in different ways at different times, and we're basically saying, okay, now it's essentially going to be impacted by however nature proposes it, is going to be impacted. The vegetation will change over time, but it's not going to be something because people are parking there, people are trampling it regularly. I'm not going to say that the future owners here aren't going to go back and pick beach plums. I would, but it's going to be sort of more of a passive use and not an active use of the property beyond the footprints we're proposing for alteration. And if you've got those other images, Julia, maybe we can just bring.
I got one more question, Tom.
Yeah. Okay.
The fence along Northern Boulevard, how
Yep.
far off the road is that?
Let me see if I can try
There's
to.
a sidewalk. So there's the road and then the sidewalk, and we're like right inside our property line.
Yeah, I don't think there's a sidewalk on this side.
No, there's no sidewalk. No.
Let me see if I have
Sand.
that.
No, that's like half a car width.
Oh, yeah. So we're on our property line.
Okay.
Right. So measuring from the property line to the edge of pavement in Adobe, so forgive me, is 0.4 inches, and this is a 10 scale, I think. So let me just make sure. I'm sorry, I'm off your screen trying to figure this out. Yeah, so it would be about 4 feet.
Okay, so if someone were to park there, they'd be parking on the street.
Right.
Right.
And it's the same on 65th Street along there?
No, because
No, the pavement's on property, so we would be right up a foot off.
Okay,
And on 63rd as well.
okay.
Yeah, no, if we fence the property line, it'd be kind of awkward traveling on the paved way. So,
Want me to put up these elevations?
yeah, so if you can see, the way we've done this is the skirting ends at that row of piles. It's right behind the utility chase. You can see in the upper left, kind of where it ends. And then everything else is wide open. So under there, we will have vegetation survival. So I think, I think what we're proposing is really a pretty small house for Plum Island standards. It's something that allows the applicant to put a home where, somebody's paid, I think, a $30,000 or so betterment for a sewer on a double lot, and also provide an awful lot of doing benefit in terms of restricting and preventing the ongoing human disturbance of the site, and really restricting it to one small area of the property.
So it's wide open, basically through to the backyard. Is that fence is not going through there to stop people from just walking?
No, but the skirting's going across it.
The skirting's going across. But
Going across, I can't point. It's going, there's a note, if you can see in the upper left, I think.
Right here.
no,
Yeah,
I
so-
see that boarding, vertical boarding, but if you look to the image to the right, it's all wide open.
Yeah, but if you,
But that's just for the driveway. That's just for the garage, right? There's parking underneath.
right.
Right. Eileen did not draw in the back skirting, but the intent is that that's going to run all the way across. I'm not saying that there's not going to be a gate and a fence or something. Somebody's going to own the property and they'd be able to go back again and pick beach plum and, maybe even try to fight bittersweet if it comes back. But that area underneath the back is to be vegetated and is going to be skirted off, so it's not regularly accessed and not easily.
To the chair's point, if you look at sketch 3 on here, plan 3, it says, Eileen has a note that says vertical boarding to follow short end of building at this plane. Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's all fenced off. It's not an easy, not an easy walk through. It's not a get out of your car and throw the kayak back there kind of place.
Yeah, no, I was concerned because, things that were on G Street or something, that we ran a fence all the way behind to keep people out.
Right. No, and then we tried to accomplish a similar thing between the fence coming right up to the home on both sides. It comes up on the right-hand side, right behind the propane tanks, and it comes up on the left-hand side, right along the side of the stairs and up and in. So,
yeah. No, I'm fine with that boarding.
Fact. Yeah.
Tom, what's the status with DEP?
They have not responded to things. We wanted to, respond to the packet we got from the chairman before trying to more aggressively, get anything from them. But I think at this point, I think the fact that they weren't getting back to us is just one of those things where they're not going to give us much more input. They've said what they've said, and we've sent in our response. So I think at this point, I think they're satisfied. I think their last communication with me was just sort of kind of a more of a remark about the sewer project than anything. And as I've said, we only really mentioned the sewer project because this, apparently was used for lay down, and we did check with the property owner, and they never asked permission. They just used it, and he didn't complain at the time. But wanting to be a good doobie with a project that was helping the whole island out. But
I would say I don't know, David or Steve, who asked that question about DEP. Mr. Abel has been copied on almost all the correspondence that Tom has provided to the commission. And Tom has reached out to them on numerous occasions. And so, you know, I think if they had any further objections, they would have made them. But they haven't said anything since that original set of comments.
Can we go back to that, the 3 panels just for a minute?
All right, let's see if I can find it. Here we go.
Okay. So to the right of the driveway,
Yep.
What is that? Is that going to be vegetated, but with?
Yeah, it's going to be vegetated, but so if we can zoom in on that. What we've done is that area will be vegetated. There'll be the clamshell patio right up near the building there with a little bit of a path coming out around to it. We do not currently show the fence going around that. While we're willing to do it, it just kind of creates a really awkward fence configuration. And we thought it would just be cleaner to come straight across.
Is that not a utility pole there also?
Yeah, there's a utility pole
Yeah.
down right in the middle. So it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be an easy place if somebody's going to try to park or pull in that location.
You can see the utility pole on the plan with the shadow, actually.
Yeah.
I think actually this makes sense right here with where the fence is and where the patio is, et cetera, because you got the driveway right here. There's going to be encroachment by the homeowners, obviously, beyond what's shown. You just know there is. But this plan, I think, is going to minimize that and keep it within an area that's already the developed and the previously disturbed part of the site for the most part. So, I mean, there's only so much we can do to limit disturbance once this gets built. But I think for me, this plan does the best job of that.
Yeah, the only thing I might add would be continue the fence along the property line down to 63rd Street.
Right
we
here?
can do that. We can do that. We were just trying to figure out how do we do what we did on the other side, and it just got to be really weird. But I think we could essentially do a T right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a corner.
Yeah.
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 Come down and maybe have it have one turn, like one thing along.
Yeah, one going along 63rd Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one
so
turn.
L it there. You'd want to do that anyhow, just because it makes it a stronger fence. So.
Like this, like sort of come
Yeah.
down and then
Yeah,
one
and that
in.
would block that whole side where the telephone pole is. So that basically between that and the telephone pole, that would prevent the sort of automobile encroachment.
Right. And it defines the property line for the two properties.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming the client would be fine with that. Chris, if you're on, I guess we could ask you. Is Chris, I can't see who's participating.
Yeah,
I'm assuming Chris is on.
I'm
Can you
allowing,
unmute him
yeah,
just so
he's allowed. He can unmute himself.
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am perfectly fine with that. I think it's a good idea, and I like the fact that it identifies the property line.
Okay, there you go. So yes, we could do that, and that could be we could get that simple plan change into you tomorrow, I think. I mean, I've got to make sure.
Well, you could just add it as a special condition to make sure it's on the plan before.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have to say, if I had my druthers, there'd be no house on this property. But I think we've done the best we can, and I'm happy with what you've got.
Thank you.
Considering when this came in, Joe, are you satisfied with what you've seen as far as what you had proposed?
Well, I'd say it'd be a lot more satisfied if the existing conditions plan actually were the existing conditions when this was submitted, or within a reasonable period of time. I think a year is really not appropriate, particularly when the area is being used as parking for adjacent construction. That added to a lot of my issues. This here, I still don't think it shows all the sand areas from trucks parking there. And, you know, the existing conditions need to be the existing conditions when the project is submitted. And this really was not.
So in this instance, though, Mr. Chair, if I could, the existing conditions were actually more detrimental to the applicant, and we actually added by using the conditions prior to the start of construction. It was, excuse me, the existing conditions would have been more favorable to the applicant. By using the conditions at the start, prior to the start of construction, it was more vegetated. So we had to show that there was less area to work with. So I understand the issue relative to the existing conditions, but the existing conditions had more disturbance than what we wanted to take credit for.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't, it was just done a year earlier. That, you know, there were no changes made to it before submission. That's the reality of it.
I understand what you're saying, but I think we're saying the same thing. It's fine.
Yeah, but I guarantee you I would have done the same thing if you did the actual existing conditions. But yeah, at this point, I'm more or less satisfied.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be, and I'm not trying to delay anything, but you know, all these colored areas that, you know, I don't think it's, I find them confusing and not all that well marked, and it would be a lot better to have a legend showing the different, you know, what the different things are. You can see the yellow section that's underneath the house there. I just found all these things pretty confusing.
Right, I understand that. There are leaders to each representative ones of those. So if you can look, you can actually, if you kind of squint on your screen, you can see that it has a label. It says vegetation removed from
No,
Santor.
I see that.
Yeah,
But in a lot of cases,
I hear you. I hear you. We could get you something with a legend on it as a condition, if that just makes it for. Are you talking more for the sort of file perpetuity, or do you feel like you need that as?
Yeah, I would like to know. I would like something that more clearly explains what all these hatched areas are.
Good.
Okay.
Can you make that a condition that Tom submit that? Because obviously this plan is much clearer, which is actually the site plan, right? That Tom can provide that prior to the issuance of a building permit?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
What did you say? Would you say that again, Lisa, so I can write it down?
The legend, that there be provided a legend prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay. Yep. Great. I might just say revised site plan that shows the fence extension to 63rd Street and a legend.
Yeah, same, that's great.
Yep.
One condition is fine.
All right, do we have anything else?
No?
Okay, do we have anybody in the public who wants to comment? Raise your hand if so. Well, I am not seeing any raised hands other than Lisa's.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second,
Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Before you move on to the next matter, I'm sorry, do you want to take a vote on the installing a split rail fence on the adjacent property along 65th Street that we will show then in the as-built?
It's a great idea.
Yes.
Somebody want to make a motion to that?
Make a motion that the as-built plan will show fence along the adjacent property on 65th Street.
That's 565th Street, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Second.
Isn't that 563rd Street?
No.
Oh, you're right, 563rd, right, it is.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's along 65th Street.
It's
Correct.
both,
Yeah,
right.
it's on, you're right, it's another double lot, but that one was developed head to toe before we touched it, basically, between the old driveway and the building.
Okay. Do we get a second?
I think Dan did.
Okay, Paul Haley,
Yeah.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yep.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Next item is 11 Barker Street, Katie and Justin Ponting, notice of intent.
Okay, I'm going to allow Mary, I've unmuted you. I think you can unmute yourself. And
Yes, thanks.
the Pontines, if they would like to speak, and Ken. Okay, anyone else for this project? Okay, great, thank you.
So this is a continuation from the September 15th meeting. Just to refresh your memory, this is an existing 2.5-story home on a full foundation and a detached garage on a slab. And the proposal is to create a second-story addition over the garage using elevating it on piles. The property is partially within the V zone and partially within an A-O zone. The garage itself is in the V zone. And we're elevating above the V zone with the new addition and the connecting structure between the two buildings and a small deck that's proposed. And I think at the last meeting, you were looking for, or we had significant discussion about the pile system that was proposed to elevate the addition over the garage. And since then, the architects have consulted with a contractor and have determined that they can remove the garage roof and install the steel piles, 6 steel piles, in order to support that, as well as the connector to the house. And then the deck would be supported by pre-augured wooden piles. So that was I think the bulk of the discussion having to do with the foundation system and what we were going to use. And then there was also some discussion about the compliance with the wetlands ordinance and the appraised value versus the project cost. And I think Ken Savoy is on the line as well. He can discuss that with you. We did receive a separate appraisal, and that information has been submitted to Julia with the current value of the the property and the appraised value, assuming the improvements, and we are still within the maximum value that's permitted with about $2,500 left over based on the appraised value. We do have that signed significant improvement determination that was submitted to you as well.
Yes, right here.
The last meeting, we had the cost estimate that didn't include the interior work in your cost estimate. Has that been accounted for?
I'm gonna turn that over to the architects to see if they can respond to that.
Good evening. This is Ken Savoy. So, yes, we did have that discussion at the last meeting. However, since the owner had gone forward and requested an appraisal, we chose to analyze that approach, and the difference in value between the existing structures and the improved structures is less than the 50% threshold. That appraisal is based on a finished space for the additions. So we feel we have appropriately accounted for a finished product within this approach. We provided copies of both the existing appraisal and the appraisal of the improved property, and that was provided to Julia along with the summary that you looked at a moment ago.
Yes, and I forwarded those appraisals to the commissioners as well, and I have them here if we need to look at them in any other kind of detail.
Well, you're asking us to compare apples and oranges because you're first, at our last meeting, you've had construction costs, which were basically only for the exterior, and you came out, I think, about $2,500 under the 50% cap, but it didn't include any of the interior work, which would have put it well over that 50% cap. And now we're looking at two appraisals, which amazingly come out to $2,500 under the cap. So I have to question some of that. And also, if I don't know, if we look at the two appraisals, at the top of each one of them, it says, I haven't done any work for this person in the last 3 years. So we have an appraisal on the existing property, and we have an appraisal on the assumed finished property by the same person. And yet at the top of each one of them, it says they haven't done any work in the last 3 years, and yet we have two different appraisals. Which doesn't seem quite right.
I'm not sure what you're questioning. The requirements are that the appraisals be done by the same appraiser and look at both the existing value of the property as well as the improved value of the property. Why is it an issue relative to when they did work for the?
Well, I thought it says that, that there's two different appraisals. I'm not sure why each appraisal would be done by the same person, but.
Well, it's actually required. Yeah,
they're paired.
Just as like to reference our regs, there's two methods by which someone can go about determining this substantial improvement threshold. One is by comparing the assessed value from the assessor's office to a licensed contractor's construction estimate. So you're comparing construction costs to the assessed value. That's what they provided to us the first time. And it was very narrow, and we wanted them to do the helical piles, and there weren't interior renovations included. They were going to have to make a whole lot of changes. The other option, which is provided in the regs, is for someone to instead of looking at appraised value and contractor's estimate, to look at an appraisal, a licensed appraiser's appraisal of the existing structure only, and of the proposed structure only. And it has to be done by the same licensed appraisal using the same methods. That's the only way to keep it sort of like, apples to apples, I guess. You wouldn't want to have one person using one method and then bring in another appraiser to use a totally different method to look at the proposed. So that's the route that they chose. And sometimes it does come out more favorable or less favorable depending on the values that are either in the market or have to do with the assessor or construction costs. But it is their option to choose which method.
Okay.
I will add that the reason we had gone down the first route, this project has been about a year in development here, and so we had started off with the notion that we would take the first approach of looking at the assessed value and then determining the construction cost. Realized too that we have the other option. The owner on his own volition decided to hire an appraiser to look at same drawings and evaluate the cost or the value of the existing structures and then compare it to the proposed. And that approach worked in our favor. So that's the option we chose based on your regs. So. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, if this, if we had continued with the method you used at our first meeting, you would have been over the 50%. I'm assuming, to cover all the costs of the interior work. So I just having difficulty having an appraiser look at it and still come out underneath.
Because sometimes the assessed, and I agree with you, Steve, but sometimes the assessed value can just be so low that it's hard because the assessors, maybe they don't get out often enough, or sometimes assessed values just are done in a way that makes the values lower than really what would be the market. So construction costs compared to an assessed value, it's hard to get a lot done and stay under that cap. But when you look at the market value, numbers go up, gives you a bigger window of work to do. So that's all I can say is it's in way of a sort of an explanation of why one might come out so different than the other.
Okay. It just seems to be an inconsistency because they got a contractor's estimate and the appraisal in some sense is saying that they don't concur with the contractor's estimate.
No, I disagree. I think Julia hit the nail on the head. It really has to do with where the starting point, the value that you place on the structure originally. And I think in this case, the assessed value was considerably less than the market value or appraised value. So we were able to start from a higher base number, and that's how it developed into a result that's favorable to the owner. Not doing anything that's outside of your regulations. It's just a different way to look at values.
Market values don't, or I should say assessed values do not often keep up with market values the way they should.
Well, the regs say it this way, so be it, I guess.
Yeah, that is what it is. So we got it. Any other questions or concerns? So you guys are you're not putting helical piles, you're putting in driven piles?
Correct. We're using driven piles for the garage addition or for the addition over the garage, as well as the connector, and then wooden piles for the deck extension on the rear.
Good, it'll keep everything in place when we get hit by one of these hurricanes.
Right. Well, all new construction will certainly be well above the floodplain.
Okay. And what you're doing doesn't, there's no effect on the vegetation around the property, so there's no mitigation that needs to happen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. In that case, do we have anything else? Okay, I don't see much in the line of public other than Tom Hughes. I'm assuming Tom's not going to comment on this. So, can I get a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Paul Ely,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The only thing I don't like about the Zoom meetings is we got to go through that every time. All right, on to enforcement and violations. Oh, Tom Hughes is here for a reason. First item is 1176th Street.
Good evening. Tom Hughes here on behalf of Bobby Condon. I did want to confirm that all fences have been removed. I have been detoured every time I've headed out there to get a photograph, but I have confirmed it. Mr. Condon has not been home for the last couple weeks, so he's been unable to get a picture for me, but I have confirmed that it's out, and I will provide a photo to you guys. I'm supposed to be going over the existing condition plan stuff with Everett either tomorrow or Thursday. And we're on our way towards putting together the after the fact filing, and it will include, removal of some of the non-compliant things that still remain and replacing them with appropriate things, and also the vegetation balance, making sure that that's correct for the site.
Okay.
Tom, I just want to remind you that I think like October, this meeting or the next meeting was the deadline for the notice of intent.
Okay.
So can we get moving on this? And we still don't have
Yeah.
the photo of the fences, so. let's,
Right, so I'll get you the photo of the fences. I've had a couple of site crises on not Newburyport sites, but
I just don't want this one to drag on for too
Right.
long. There were so many violations on that site. We need to start getting this taken care of.
No, understood. So what I'm looking at is I think we will be able to have a filing plan ready for your next filing deadline that's coming up. It's going to be tight, but I think we can make that.
The first meeting in November.
Yeah, I think that's a week from this coming Friday, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I think we can do it. I need to make sure that Everett can actually get the plan work done in time, but
Okay.
we are.
Just give me an update. Just keep me in the loop.
Yeah, will do. And I'll get you the photos of the fence out. But we're not, it's on this one, less on the client than more on just workload and trying to get Everett and I coordinated. The thing is, his office is like right across the hall from mine, but I haven't seen him like in person in a while. So
That's all right. I got it.
Well, okay. Yeah, I would like to see that for the November meeting, the first November meeting, which is actually not going to happen because of the election.
Oh, right. So let's, ooh.
Okay.
But it needs to be in
Well, so
before that
what we
deadline.
can try, yeah, what we can try to do, if we can get it filed to you, or at least a plan to you before the next meeting, perhaps there may be some other steps we can make towards compliance outside of the NOI if there's obvious things on there that need to come out, or maybe we can make some on the ground progress while we pursue the after the fact NOI.
Yeah, well, whatever you can do, it's great, but
Yeah,
like to see the NOI. So it sounds like maybe second meeting in November, but get that into us ASAP.
So we will have a plan to you before your next meeting, so that when I give you an update next hearing. Although I'll be in Newbury, I think, at hearing night, so I may not be able to stay for the update, but I'll at least be able to get something to you for that night.
Okay.
Right, but that NOI needs to be submitted as if we were having a meeting on.
No, understood. I'd like to get it in time, and maybe what we might be able to do, if it's okay with the commission, would be to have this at the beginning of the agenda at that next meeting, and that way I could still talk to you about it and then move on to Newbury from there.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so beginning of next agenda. Actually, I gotta say, because we took care of everything tonight, we don't have anything on our agenda for our next meeting. So unless you want to have a meeting just to talk to Tom about 1176th Street, we could potentially cancel the next meeting. It's up to you guys, but we could just count on him getting us something for the second meeting in November instead. And he can keep me up to date and send me photos or whatever, and I can send them to you.
Right. And I think maybe if the commission could authorize Julia to allow removal of any obvious additional violation things, just to move things on the ground.
The problem is, Tom, the additional violations are so big that it's really part of the notice of intent, I feel like, for this guy.
That's fine. I just wanted to find a way so it didn't languish too long.
No, I think the fences were the ones that could easily be taken care of, and they are being, and so that's good. And the rest of it needs to be incorporated into this NOI.
Right. No, I know the stairs and the vegetation are a couple of huge things, and we're working on those numbers.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is 8 Nancy Street.
Okay, I'm gonna apologize to you guys. I don't have any update on 8 Nancy Street because I've been I didn't send the violation that we discussed at the last meeting. I left this on here, but as a placeholder, but I've been trying to get in touch with the neighbor I've been trying to set up a meeting with the neighbor who was the one who called because she has the photos. She has the historical photos, and I didn't totally feel comfortable sending this notice of violation until I had the before and after. So it's just been tricky to get in touch with her because she doesn't have email, so she can't figure out how to email me her photos that she has on her phone. So we needed to meet. She was going to print them out, yada yada. I don't have an update on this one yet, so I'm going to keep it on here as a placeholder, and I will hopefully get you an update next week.
Okay. All right. On to orders of conditions.
Okay. So first one was is 192 Northern. And special conditions for 192 Northern discussed were that the split rail fence shown on the plan, the most recent plan dated 10/6/2020, is to continue to 63rd Street along the eastern property line. That's going to require a plan change prior to the start of work. You also requested that a legend be provided for the site plan, which I agree with. So I think we should combine those into one special condition. That would be the applicant shall provide a revised site plan showing a fence to be continued, showing the split rail fence continued along the eastern property line to 63rd Street, and a legend for the site plan.
Okay, and Juliet, that fence was going to have one section going along, it was going to turn and go along 63rd.
Oh, right, okay, and so continue along the eastern property line to 63rd Street, and then, what would that be? And then west towards, turn west towards, the driveway and Northern Boulevard.
One section, yeah.
Yeah, one section of it. Towards, okay, and the other special condition was that, oh, I wrote this one down. You can let me know if you agree with it. The area beyond the split rail fence as shown on the approved plans shall be maintained into perpetuity as undisturbed vegetated area. So I can say the area beyond the fence shown on approved plans outside of, house and driveway shall be maintained into perpetuity as undisturbed vegetated area. Because you can see someone comes in and buys this house, or the next person who buys a house, and they don't like the fence and they take out the fence. And then they come in for a permit to build a patio or whatever. So I think we make this perpetual condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for me.
It's a hard one to enforce if they just start doing stuff.
I know, but at least if somebody goes back and looks, I mean, who knows how many years go by, but if somebody has this, pulls up this old order conditions, they'll see that that's, something that can't be allowed if they come forward for an approval. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you can tell them they can't change or modify or take down portions of the fence once it's up. If it needs maintenance or whatever, that's going to be more tricky, which is why I felt like if we just say that the area outside that fence has to be maintained as vegetated, then that is a little bit easier to handle into perpetuity.
Would it be the area within the fence?
Maybe the area within the fence, outside of the house and driveway developed area.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with just saying the fence shall remain in its location.
Okay, I can say that the fence shall remain too, and we can leave it like that and see how it goes. But I also want to include that the area needs to be vegetated. Yeah. Okay. All right, that works.
Okay.
Put that in. Anything else that you were all thinking of? Anyone wants to suggest for that one? Because they revised the plans so many times and there's so many details on them, I think as long as we reference the final dates of all the final plans that were submitted, that's gonna pretty much cover
Right.
what we need.
Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Hughes.
I know the hearing's closed. I just have a question on the condition on the vegetation. No problem with that, but you may want to have some language that allows management activities such as invasive removal or others for the health of the vegetation, so that you don't totally prohibit somebody from doing things beneficial.
I don't think that this condition would prevent somebody from going in and maintaining the vegetation. In fact, it says that it should be maintained as undisturbed vegetation.
Right. I just,
native. I could say it should be
Right.
maintained as undisturbed native vegetation, or native non-invasive.
Native, non-invasive.
Yeah. And then that leaves it sort of open for someone to maintain it as non-invasive.
As long as that doesn't put the burden on somebody 20 years from now to control bittersweet, I think that's,
Right.
yeah. I just wanted to put that out there. I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that, can maintain bittersweet, or somebody can go pick the plums,
Undisturbed native vegetation. All right, I think that'll work. I don't,
Okay.
I think we're so rigid. I think
minutes-
anyone in the future would understand that that would be okay.
Right. I think if the minutes reflect as part of that condition that things like invasive removal would be acceptable, or,
Okay.
you know, link for the health of a plant,
Yeah,
that would be.
right. Good point. Got, all right, let's put that in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate the commission's time on this.
Motion to issue the order conditions with those special conditions.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola.
Yes.
Okay. And now we're on 211 Barker Street.
Okay. Actually, 11 Barker Street, I don't have any special conditions written down. I did draft already the standard Plum Island special conditions for that one, just like the others. But there was nothing discussed at tonight's hearing specifically. I mean, there's no vegetation at play in this project. They've satisfied the substantial improvement. They're using the right kinds of pilings. Everything is elevated well above base flood elevation, way up in the air. So there's no landscaping. I'm not sure if anyone can think of an additional special condition for this one. Let me know.
I can't think of one.
Not at this point.
All right. Motion. Paul, if you're talking.
The orders of condition.
Second.
Paul Haley. Paul, we can't hear you anymore, FYI.
Put your thumb up.
Nope, can't hear you. Anyways, yeah, give me a thumbs up if you vote yes. All right, thumbs up. Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All righty. Jane, we hardly knew you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
When's moving day, Jane?
Well, I'm up here now. We
Oh.
bought the house, but actual moving date is October 20th. And we
Yeah, I was
closed.
gonna say that didn't look like the place
No.
you were.
No, but it's wonderful up here. The
That's
neighborhood
great.
actually has its own trail that has a trail up where you can, to a ledge where you can see Mount Washington and all the,
Oh my
so
gosh.
you actually don't even have to go anywhere.
Wow. Good for
Sounds
you.
good.
It's pretty glorious,
Sounds it.
but I'll miss you guys and good luck.
We'll miss you.
Miss you. Thanks for sticking with us for as long as you did.
Okay.
Yeah. And don't forget to get on that town's commission too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it take me a little while, but yeah.
I have one question. Would it be appropriate for us to contribute some money towards the sandbags on Reservation Terrace to help pay for them?
That is a good question, Steve.
Given that we've got that much money.
I don't know
Yeah.
that we want to get involved with that. That'll.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope because it's an endless amount of money that's needed for that.
Yeah,
Endless.
they'll come after you for every penny that's left in there, and it'll be gone in a year.
Yeah,
they're
I-
not-
On and on and on and on.
Well, and the thing is, there are other sources of funding, and there are bigger pots of money that are necessary than what we could ever provide. So,
Right.
where unlike the Gloria Bernhardt Trail and these bog bridges. It's a small amount, and they can't do it unless they get a little bit of money from somebody. So I think, and we have a little bit of money to give, so.
I get your point, Steve. I agree too, but yeah, I know in the past, there have been folks looking at our bank account too. So I guess it would be prudent not to.
I gotta say that I'm not sure I want to approve any more $25,000 or $50,000 sand things out there, because it's just throwing money away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the owner's, contribution is more important than us contributing.
Yeah. And really, once that dredging happens, it's going to help a lot.
Yeah, but that's 2 years away.
Correct. And they're not going to put any more sand out there other than they're just going to put the bags. There's no other sand going.
Well, I know, but let's suppose that these bags don't even make it through the winter. We don't know. And then we still got another year to go before the dredging happens. And
well,
You know what? This is a first. I mean, it's not even the first, but this is a problem in a long line of problems on Plum Island that are going to be related to sea level rise, storm, increasing storm damage, wave energy, etc. And I think that it's something that needs to get dealt with at a much higher level than what we can do by buying some sand, extra sand.
Right.
But
those wheels turn pretty slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Something
mean,
maybe
not
more
really,
like movie mats or something along those lines, I could see it more.
you're also
something-
not really protecting the environment by putting up sandbags. You're protecting people's homes.
That's true.
Good point.
And
That's true.
that's not really what we are in the business of doing. I mean,
It's a very
we
good
are,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, which is like why David said. I agree with that. And David, I think you just suggested, it would be more appropriate to buy some Moby mats, which protect the dune in a different way than putting sand out there to protect the houses.
That's true. But they'll get washed out to sea too.
Well, and the pathways that we put them on might not be around.
Well, they're also seasonal.
Yeah. No, that is true. But I'm just amazed at those waves that were being produced by a hurricane that was 500 or 600 miles away. That was and up the river.
It's just a ticking time bomb out there.
It is.
Yeah.
As all that those foundations getting opened up.
You were smart to head to higher ground, Jane. Yep, get up there.
Yeah, but the problem is everybody else is going to go up there too.
That's absolutely happening. It's crazy, but you get storms up here too. So
yeah, true enough.
But you don't have to worry about water as much,
right?
Or storms.
So.
All right.
All right, folks.
Good night, everyone. Take
Motion
care.
to adjourn.
One more, did you make the motion, Steve?
I did.
I'll second.
You want to take one? The final
All right,
one.
Paul Ely. Steve Moore.
Yes.
Dan Warshaw.
Yes.
David Vine.
Yes.
Ron DeCola.
Yes.
I vote yes. Jane Sender.
Yes.
Night, everyone.
All right. Good luck.
Night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.